That's one hell yeah. I think we're good to go then. Hello everybody and welcome to a marathon tier list update. My name is Jackal, and as you all know, I mentioned it before that this is going to be a brand new tier list rather than an update on the previous ones, even though it's the same series, simply because a mid-season update has dropped for a few days now, almost a week. I haven't had the chance to stream because busy dealing with stuff at LAN even though I was home, and a couple of other things. So we're finally doing the tier list update now. It's happening. Regular content scheduled after that, so back on to the Thursday updates. Just this time, had to find time to do it for a couple of hours because obviously it's a brand new tier list. See, all the gods are unranked, putting them all into the list individually. Going to talk through them in alphabetical order, and we'll see where we go from there. A couple of things before we do get started, as per usual. Tier list is based mostly on competitive play. Looking at high-level SPL, high-level SML, as well as international region play from those teams that do attend the lands, and mostly predominantly focused in European meta, although we will be taking some stuff from NA meta as well. Without further ado, let's get this show on the road. Hope you have some popcorn, hope you have some drinks, because it's a long tier list update, and we're going to start all the way at the top with Achilles. Achilles, we talked about him before when he received his nerfs, and just as a preface, we are doing this after the 5.14 update notes have come out. I do know Achilles is getting adjusted, but this is for 5.13. In 5.14, he will be moving up. But right now, in 5.13, I feel Achilles really only has one decent matchup that you pick him into, and that's against the Cuchulainn. And even then, it's a bit hit and miss. If the Cuchulainn manages to survive the early couple of levels against the Achilles relatively unscathed, then Achilles doesn't really have a good matchup, and then can't really push his advantage as an early game god in that early game. Try to snowball that side of the map, and he would need help from the jungler then. Can't really do it by himself, needs the support from the jungler, which then frees up the other side of the map to be a bit more aggressive, or a bit more defensive if you're playing on the Achilles' side. So Achilles, for my money right now, is going to go into A+. Still phenomenally powerful if you get him off to that early good start. One of the best gods, in fact, the best god to be playing from ahead in the solo lane, in my opinion, right beside the Cuchulainn, which is an absolute nightmare to deal with if you can get him off to that good start. He can flex into jungle as well, can also flex into support, but we haven't seen too much of that recently. I think going on from the next patch, you will be seeing him in solo lane almost every single time. Again, that's for the next patch. On to Agni. Very strong mid laner right now. And with the nerfs to a couple of items and buffs to a couple of items in the mid lane, specifically talking about Chronos Pendant nerfs and Bancross Talent. Bancross Talent also got nerfed. Changes to Warlock Staff as well, and the changes to Book of Thoth. You like a lot of power on Agni, and you can also build one defensive item on him. It doesn't necessarily need the cooldown reduction. It was just a very nice item to have because it was such a strong item. You can then free it up for some lifesteal if you wanted to in the early game. You can free it up for that Book of Thoth rush, even though it doesn't really need the mana, considering he does exceptionally well with the abilities. Changes to Soul Reaver really benefit him as well. No longer have to wait 40 seconds for it. Each bomb will individually proc Soul Reaver, which means you're getting overall more damage from your burst combinations. Agni, slightly better than he was in 5.12 on the 5.13 patch, although I would have massive emphasis on that slightly. Losing that Soul Reaver proc does hurt him. It does hurt a lot, if not every single mage, as Agni doesn't suffer as much as the other ones because of his constant sources of damage. My money, Agni is an S- character, far better than a lot of people are giving credit for. We should be seeing more Agni in the SPL. We're just not doing so right now, simply because other mid laners are stealing the limelight, and hunters are kind of in an unbalanced state right now, which is why you're seeing a lot of hunter mids and double hunter compositions. AMC. If your name is Snoopy, I'm putting him, like, up here somewhere. If your name is not Snoopy, you're kind of going to have a rough time with this pick. High Execution God is the AMC. Requires good positioning, requires good warding, requires good awareness of when you can burst down the opposition or when you need to fall back. Also requires constant maintaining of your hive network. AMC is a very difficult god to play in competitive because he is very easily camped, but he doesn't have the bonus movement speed from his hives. Almost one of the easiest gods to lock down in that ADC position. But can also have the potential to turn around the fights. And losing the disarm on his passive kind of does hurt him a tiny bit. It doesn't seem like it was that big of a change, but the random disarms that you would get in lane could swing fighting, could swing boxing match. And now with that disarm gone, he kind of does fall down a tiny bit, although there's not too much room for him to fall down too, if we're really being honest. A- for now for the B-God. I still think he brings a lot of strengths into team compositions. I still think he does bring good push, good ability-based damage, and good burst through his ultimate and his swarm combo. The issue is, he gets bursted down pretty much the same as any other ADC. And he doesn't have the defensive capabilities like other ADCs. He doesn't have CC immunity like an Anhur. He has conditional movement speed based around where his hives are, so he has to be ahead, he has to be fighting in certain zones. With teamfights being pulled left, right, and center, AMC's hive passive won't be a guarantee in those fights, which is why he's not being picked up a lot. Now this one, I am actually struggling with a lot, believe it or not. Upwash in the 5.13 patch notes got buffed. Massively so. Rank 1 of Undead Surge now gives 2 corpses, rather than it being 1 all the way up until rank 3, and rank 4 and 5 had the 2 corpses. And his ult now has anti-heal on it. That change for anti-heal on his ult was actually brought up by myself and Inbound, support player for Astral Authority on the Xbox. One of the most brilliant minds which I've talked to in Smite, really. But I highly recommend you go talk to him as well if you have any questions about Smite, because he will be able to help you. I firmly believe that. Upwash. He has an absolutely insane laning phase now. His laning phase is absolutely monstrous. His burst damage in the early game, in the mid game, and in the late game is fantastic. You can probably play him in mid these days. Get your third ability, Fleeting Breath, at rank 1. Then go into either Undead Surge or Corpse Explosion, and then get the third one at rank 3. And you pretty much just insta-clear every single wave. I wouldn't necessarily play him in mid, but you can play him in the solo lane. And in the solo lane, he is very difficult to dislodge, especially when going for a tanky build with Lono's Mask. And Lono's Mask is what, for me, tips it over the edge, tips Upwash over the edge into absolutely insane numbers. Because right now, Lono's Mask doesn't have that anti-heal, doesn't have that healing reduction on it. But you could technically call it anti-heal. Self-anti-heal. Doesn't have that healing reduction on it. So he's getting the full benefit from his passive from picking up those corpses. If you're building tanky defensive on him, you've got to be building health, meaning that passive is going to be more impactful. For Lono's Mask, you being very difficult to kill, picking up all those corpses on 40% CDR just makes you unkillable. They just dance around in your ult, they're not healing for as much, they're taking a load of damage, they're being controlled by you in the fights, and Upwash just becomes an absolute monster to deal with. Big issue is still his early game. He's still very susceptible to be ganked early game, still very susceptible to be killed, so you have to pick him in a matchup where the enemy jungler isn't going to be able to provide that much pressure on you. And right now, junglers are just being picked for that pressure. You have to play very defensive, you have to play very far back, and most of the time you're not going to be able to survive the early game during that phase. In a competitive standpoint, Upwash is still not that great, but in a casual and even ranked standpoint, Upwash is absolutely phenomenal right now because you can get away with your early game relatively scot-free with good positioning and good warding. You can do it in competitive, it's just a lot harder, it requires a lot more coordination, and requires the draft to go your way to do so. And in doing that, Upwash for me is an A- character. I think when the Lono's Mask nerfs hit, Upwash is going to be moving down, but it still remains to be seen. I still need to actually get into some scrims and to get something of an inclining to see where he's actually going to be going. Amaterasu is the next up on the list. We've been going for about 10 minutes, so we've already put 4 gods on the list. Yikes. So, Amaterasu. Can be played as support, can be played in the solo lane. Good control throughout the entirety of the game, in my opinion. And her auras are just so disruptive in teamfights. If you're trying to face an Amaterasu, good luck catching up to the teammates who are surrounding her, because that movement speed aura is fantastic, and then when you're CC'd, bang, power stance aura, and they're just doing 200 more damage per ability. Very difficult to deal with an Amaterasu, because conversely to what you would believe, you kind of do have to kill the Amaterasu first, because she provides so much utility just by being around and in that fight. Not only through her auras, but through the silence of her dash and through the slow and then stun of her ultimate. Creates a huge amount of space, huge amount of peel, can really dictate and control the pace of a fight if played well. A good Amaterasu player is very difficult to deal with. Personally, I think Amaterasu is an S tier character. We should be seeing a lot more Amaterasu than we do, and I believe that in 5.13 and even a bit further on, we will be seeing a lot more Amaterasu. Anhur. I'm gonna say this right now. If Artemis is meta, and you are not seeing Anhur picked up against her, you know something is wrong with Anhur. And right now, I can't put my finger on it. I can't really think of a reason why we aren't seeing at much Anhur. Apart from the fact that his late game isn't that great. He's got a good slow, got a good stun, got a good CC immune ultimate. But compared to gods like Ram, like Chernobog, like Artemis, you're just not having that same impact from an Anhur as you would do those characters. Because they're able to be in teamfights a lot better. Artemis brings some of the best control you will ever see in a game on a hunter, no less. Like, the amount of CC that she brings, the amount of control she brings in a teamfight is reminiscent of a Guardian, let alone a hunter. Anhur doesn't bring that. Ram can take himself out of the fight for 5 seconds, still bring damage, still bring vision, still influence the fight. Anhur can't do that. Chernobog can ult up into the sky, slow everyone on the enemy team, come back down with damage mitigation, as well as a passive that makes him hit harder than you would expect him to. Anhur cannot do that. Anhur is designed to get the early game lead, and in the ADC position, this split, and maybe going into the next one, you aren't seeing ADCs win because they have the counter matchup. You're seeing it from a 2v2 standpoint. So whilst it might have Artemis and Anhur would look like a good pick, it all comes down to, well, what support they have. Most of the time, Anhur's not really going to fancy going up against most of the common supports these days. Anhur right now for me is an A tier character. Still would have him over AMC, but not a good look for the King of Spears. What would Odin be the King of Spears? I don't know. Anubis, next up on the list. I love Anubis. Those of you who have seen me play have seen some of my worshippers. Anubis is my favorite god. Why it pains me to put him into B tier. Yes, Bancroft's did get a price increase. Python's Fang did get buffed in terms of Anubis, but it's still not enough to bring him into the meta. Anubis right now, you pick him when you have a good strat around him. And I don't like to use the word cheesy, but my definition of cheesy is strategies that will work once, and then won't work again because teams will instantly know what to do against it. And with Anubis, the way he works and the way he will work in competitive is with those cheesy strats. So, at Worlds in Season 4. It was Worlds. Just proxy behind tier 1, into invades, boom, genius. That'll work once, because next time you're looking like you're drafting Anubis, bang. They know exactly where you are, know exactly how to fight you, and then they come kill you and stop that strategy from ever occurring, meaning the reason he picked Anubis is no longer valid. So Anubis doesn't really have that much going for him right now. I'd like to see him get something, maybe on his Mummify, just to give him something extra, something there to pick him, because he's there for damage and damage alone, and people could just walk away from his damage. Bit inconsistent his damage, bit lackluster in teamfights, which is where he struggles the most. Fantastic in the early game, fantastic at getting that 1v1 kill, but in the teamfights he struggles to really focus and single down a target because everybody's just jumping on him because he's immobile. Al Kuang up next. Don't know what to make of Al Kuang now with the different masks, but at 512 I thought he was a really strong pick. Really nice niche pick, but a strong pick at that. With Al Kuang now, I still think he is a strong pick. I still think he does what you need him to do, which is get those executes online early, be able to carry a game in that mid and late game, but he suffers early still. if you're going up against most of the common junglers which you see, like Circuit or Nemesis even from time to time, you are going to have a bad time. Because they do find ways to punish the Alcorn consistently. And even Arachne punishes Alcorn incredibly well. Alcorn can't fight in the early game. He needs to have the team built around him, and that's why you've seen teams draft in hunters in the mid lane. Gods with good pressure in that mid lane. Because then that gives Alcorn some freedom, some breathing room to farm in that early game. Get himself to the mid game as quickly as possible to the point where he can fight, where he can gank. If he gets an opportunity gank off early, that's even better, because he then gets power from his passive, then gets extra lifesteal from his passive, which allows him to fight earlier. But in competitive games, you're probably not going to get that every single time. I did get a double kill very early on when he played Alcorn, fantastic. But 9 games out of 10, you aren't going to get that start. And because of that, Alcorn isn't really that strong of a pick unless you have the team comp built around him. And the definition of which puts him at B tier. I think he's stronger than a B tier character, but if you have to build the comp around him, that's B tier. Fortunately, Strong God put down all the way there. 513, Aphrodite. I don't think I need to explain that. Bellona's mask is bullshit. You can play her in support, you can play her in solo, just pick her. You can even play her in mid and build. You just build lots of cooldown reduction, Lona's mask. And you heal everyone, and you don't die because you're so tanky, and then you have CC, then you have a complete immunity ultimate on top of that. 20% damage mitigation on the mask is absolutely dumb. It was 15% going into the match, and I thought 15%, that's good, that will create some nice plays where you can have support Nox, support healers, maybe Zhongqi in the solo lane will build it, then they bumped it up to 20%, and suddenly healers are fucking broken now. Aphrodite with Lona's mask is one of the most bullshit things to deal with, and if you can find a way to deal with it, fantastic. She doesn't carry games by herself because the Lona's mask will reduce her damage output, and that's one of the big reasons why she's not SS. Because she still can't kill everybody by herself. She can outlast everybody, but it will take her about 17 years to kill the entire team, because the support will just not die to her. Apollo is going to be next up on the list. When I kept seeing Chernobog at the LAN, I immediately thought Apollo would be a fantastic pick against. If you could get Athena, it would be a good pick against it. Because Athena and Chernobog sort of cancel out each other in terms of global ability. You normally pick Chernobog to counter the Athena, although Athena can do the same to the Chernobog if you just teleport over to that fight and crowd control him as the person who he flies over to kills him. I kept on thinking Apollo. Just get on your chariot, fly over to that fight as well. By the time you get there, his damage mitigation will be over, his abilities will be down, and you could just kill him. But we don't see him. At all. His early game laning phase is fantastic as the Apollo. But, again, it just gets outshone by other ADCs who are able to stand to the side of the wave to clear it. Or ones that are able to just go into the middle of the wave for a second and boom, it's gone. Like Rom. That's one of the other reasons that Rom is still good, despite the fact he has to go into the middle of the wave to clear it. But that you can still clear it from the side if you want to. You would take more hours and take more time. Or you can just stand in the middle of the wave, clear it with a few basic attacks, and then you're off. Apollo can't really do that. Apollo does have to stand to the side of the wave, does have to hit only 3 minions with that So Beautiful. Unless you're able to position yourself correctly. Then when it comes to team fights, you don't really have an ultimate unless you're starting the team fight elsewhere on the map. But by the time you're able to rotate over with that across the sky, the team fight's probably already over. So in that sense, you are down an ultimate in the team fights. Got good self-peel, got a good mez, and then got a good knock-up. Well, on his ultimate, got a good dash. Giving a bit of movement speed, debuffing the enemy's movement speed as well. That's something which not a lot of people know about. But he's just still not that great. Apollo. Down to A. I would still have... I think... No, it's actually A-. Putting him in A- for now. I would much rather have an Anhur than the Apollo, because at least Anhur will almost guarantee you that early game. Arachne. next up on the list. Similarly to Snoopy, if your name's Weaken, I'm putting you like up here. Arachne is really good in the hands of Weaken, and I highly implore you to watch any game where he's played Arachne, because it's fantastic. For most other people, it's very difficult to get this Arachne working. You have to make sure that your early game is good, get a couple of kills early if you can, but you almost have to get those couple of kills early to then be able to fight other people. The addition of Lona's Mask, I believe, does help Arachne. Being able to build sort of this aggressive, tanky Arachne who's able to go in, deal dot damage to opponents, reveal them with the web, slow them with the webs as well. It's a good pick. The issue is, you're picking it for single target CC and harassment, when you can do that with pretty much every other jungler, but then also get more from them in the early game and have to rely less on getting those early kills and getting that early advantage. But for me, Arachne doesn't really have a place in this game right now. Arachne I'm putting down in B tier. You have to build the comms around her. You have to also kind of make sure that you're up against a good matchup in the jungle, otherwise it's very difficult or nigh on impossible to get her working. You have to win the games early with the Arachne, and if you get to that mid and late game and the game's still not won, you have to get lucky with who you go on and whose relics are down, because you are essentially fighting 4 versus 5 with the Arachne on your. Again, I'll listen to Weaken. Ares. Ares. Just a quick PSA. Vote Ares for the tier 5 skin. If you're voting Ganesha, get off. Go away. No one likes you. But Ares provides great control. Triple on his chains, as well as you can even build a gem isolation to slow them even further. Got a great teamfighting ultimate, probably one of the best teamfighting ultimates from a support perspective, because you just bring people to a single spot where your carriers will know where they are going to be, you know when they're going to be there, and then bang, they're probably dead if people get pulled in. The issue is, people don't tend to get pulled in. People will build Magi's, people will build beads. We even saw Milsey building beads against the Ares, because he knows himself that he has to survive to be able to get his abilities off, to be able to impact the team fight more. Getting the support to build on the relic is powerful, but if you're unable to kill them because of it, that's more powerful and more of an obligation to the enemy support. You have to stay alive against the initial Ares ultimate, and then you become the more impactful support in the team fight. If you die because of the Ares ult, Ares just carries that team fight because of that. He doesn't have to kill and bring in the carries. He just has to bring in the enemy support and stop them doing what they want to do. Stop them getting their ultimate ability off. And most of the time you can do that, but if you build beats, if you build Magi's, there's no real pulling you. Especially if you ever CC me an ultimate, like a Geb or a Kumbhakana, or even a Kuzumbo. I don't know why you're playing Kuzumbo before, but just hypothetically. There is no real way you can get the Ares to work if the enemy know exactly what you're planning, know exactly what you're doing, and are keeping good track of your ultimate timings. Not every team's going to do that. And even if your ultimate doesn't really work, go off the way you want it to, you can still play the fight out with the rest of your abilities and do extremely well. Bolster defenses is one of the most undervalued abilities in the game, because your protections give you CCR, and it gives it to you in an AoE. If you pop that and then everybody gets hit by a shockwave, or a cataclysm, sorry, they're all going to be stunned for 30% less, because you gain 30% CCR. That's ridiculously strong, and people undervalue that ability massively. Ares brings good utility, good damage, good control, but doesn't really bring much outside of that. Other supports will bring a lot more control than he will. Ares will just bring the damage and be able to help you kill and aggress a lot easier in that early game. Ares, my money, is an A+ character. Now we're on to Artemis. Got changed in the 5.13 patch notes. No longer has to crit on her passive, instead gains power against targets who are CC'd. That translates to minions as well at double the rate. And I hate to say this, but I think that new passive is stronger. I think that new passive is stronger than the crit passive because it's guaranteed damage. The Artemis can proc it herself on 3 out of 4 of her abilities. Don't forget, it will also proc on slows, meaning that suppressing insolent will also give her the benefit of her passive. And in the early game laning phase, you're going to be clearing faster than the enemies. You're going to be clearing faster than you were before, because you are guaranteeing your passive damage onto the minions which you hit with pressing insolent, as well as any other ability which your support's going to throw at them in the early game. You're playing with a Kumbhakana and they root the wave, they're all affected by CC, meaning you're going to get your passive. You hit the enemy ADC with the root as Kumbhakana, Anubis hits them with basic attacks, they're taking 15% increased damage from the Anubis passive. And it's guaranteed. No longer one basic attack gets crit, you're lucky, bang, you've won the fight. You're pretty much winning the fight off CC, and Anubis brings most of that herself. Anubis, an extremely strong character still. I firmly believe they need to nerf that passive, because it's very strong still. They also need to nerf Tusky. Tusky is broken. Artio. Decent solo laner. Not that great in support. Biggest thing you're picking her for is the cripple. You also can reduce damage done by the opposition by reducing their power output. But you don't really pick her for that. You pick her for the cripple field. And for the control that she can bring because of it. And when you're facing gods who rely on their dashes, rely on their leaps, rely on their jumps, and you're not picking Artio consistently, that shows a weakness and a flaw in the character. Which is, she does well against those gods, but to get to those gods, it takes her a hell of a lot. She has to get Blink, which means you're not getting that second defensive relic. If you got Sprint as your first relic, you have to get Blink next. You're not going to get Shell, you're not going to get Thorns, you're not even going to get TP. You get TP as your first relic, you don't go Blink second one. The backliners aren't going to give a fuck, they're going to see you coming a mile away, and then just going to back off with their dashes. You have to get Blink as an Artio. And shoehorning a relic into that position, you don't have the other teamfight relic with you. You're relying on your support to get those 2 teamfighting relics. You sort of have to forego meditation when you have an Artio on your team. Unless the Artio decides to pick it up herself, at which point she has meditation and blink, which means she's very easy to deal with. You could just get away from her very easily, considering she just blinks in, boom, you're gone. You see a cripple field, you then just dash away, you then jump away, considering you know she's just going to blink then. Artio, for my mind right now, is an A tier character. Does what she does well, is picked in quite a few situations, should be picked more for what she brings, but isn't because of a very easily telegraphed play. Athena! I think Athena is the best support in the game. Just straight up the best support in the game. The Found, i.e. the Taunt, is the most infuriating ability to deal with from a support perspective. Considering it's pretty much always up. It's on a, 18-second cooldown at base. And then you build 40% CDR, and then all of a sudden it's up at every 10 seconds. It's unbelievably difficult to deal with. The constant dash, taunt, dash, taunt, dash, taunt. And even when you think you've gotten her down to like 1%, she just manages to run away. You think, okay, well, she's not going to be back for a while. Bang! Defender Olympus comes in from the fountain, and she's back in the fight, full health, full mana. Probably with a new item or some more wards. And what's more, the target who gets ulted by the Defender Olympus, 25 or 20% damage mitigation. It's absolutely insane. If you apply this with Chernobog, the Chernobog becomes absolutely unkillable. Athena is mind-bogglingly broken. And rightfully so, she got banned or picked every single game at LAN, I believe. Every single game. She should be seeing nerfs, but she isn't, and I have no fucking clue why. The fact that Athena is this broken for this long and hasn't received nerfs, I don't know. Maybe they're worried that if they nerf it even slightly, they're going to kill the character. But frankly, I would like to see a meta where to see it just even a couple weeks where Athena isn't picked every single game. Awilix. Got famous for countering jumps and bringing people in with knockups. Got to see some play at LAN, which I was actually surprised at. Because yes, while she does do good against gods with jumps and she's good paired with gods with knockups, it's still just a byproduct of her kit. Gravity Surge is what, like, I think it's Gravity Surge, is one of the best abilities in the game in terms of the control it brings from an assassin perspective. And then you can root them in place. But apart from that, she's not got that great mobility in the team fight, especially in that late game. Because she has to hop onto Suku, then leap. That takes a good 1.5 to 2 seconds. Very easy to lock down the Awilix when she gets in, which is kind of not what you want to see when you're playing that Awilix. And by the time you manage to gravity somebody over to you, they're probably going to feed it anyway. Probably going to be able to get out of that ability, meaning you have to go into the middle of the fight afterwards. The whole point of bringing somebody over to you is so therefore you can get that 1v1, where Awilix is at a massive advantage. And you just can't get that in late game team fights. She has to win the game early, as do most assassins I feel these days, apart from the ones which are picked consistently. That Awilix is going to be an A tier character for me. Very tempted to put her in A-, but I think she can be picked in situations where she is the only god with the knock-up on our team and isn't facing that many jumps and still do well because of her control and damage throughout the early game. Bacchus is going to be the next one. We did see a Bacchus at LAN, was played by Callas, and I think it did the job. I think the Bacchus did what it was supposed to, which was control some fights and bring good damage to them. The issue is, he can't get that farm early. It's very all-in the early game. You have to be aggressive, you have to jump onto the enemy ADC a lot, try and force those beads, make sure you're on the same wavelength with your ADC, because you hit that knock-up and they're taking a lot of damage, especially if you pick a god like Ullr. Knock-up into Hail of Arrows, into Bladed Arrow, into the Axe when they're landed, then into the stun from the Belcher of the Gods, they are dead. They have to beat the knock-up in that situation. You pair it with very aggressive ADCs and you can get a massive advantage in. The issue is, most of the aggressive ADCs aren't picked up right now. Because they rely on getting those early game advantages, which they can do. Very easily can do, like I've just explained. With Bacchus, you can get those early game advantages. But then Bacchus gets, if you fail the flop once, if you jump in at the wrong time, you are then punished because you've used your mobility to engage in that fight. Use your primary source of damage as well, which is your engage and disengage tool. And you're just hung out to dry because all of a sudden now there's 3 people in your lane and you're dead. And then you're behind, you can't flop on the wave. Your wave clear becomes infinitely worse because you can't play aggressive with the Bacchus anymore. You succeed pressure, you succeed your buffs, and you fall further and further behind. Because you cannot play aggressively anymore. All because you missed a couple of flops and got ganked. Very difficult to get that Bacchus up and running, but once you do, you are rewarded for it. Bacchus, in my mind, is going to be an A tier character. I don't really have much more to say about that. Bakasura, next one up. Stunkening Sword did get a buff. In a couple patches before, I believe Hasten Katana did get a buff. Now, also in this patch, Toxic Blade got a buff. A lot of these in-hand based items are getting buffed incrementally. That's starting to bring back auto attack based ADC. Or auto attack based junglers. Still not seeing auto attack based warriors, although I believe with the new Glad Shield you will do next patch, which is yikes. The Bakasura pick still plays extremely aggressively, and he did get adjusted this patch, and this is the big thing about the Bakasura for the 5.13 patch. was the change to his regurgitate. Change to his takedown, it's nice considering he no longer gets... He's no longer the only one really benefiting from leaping onto an opponent. Everybody from his team benefits from it, because he now amplifies damage taken to the opposition, which meaning if you jump on somebody and then boom, Tothel comes on top of them, they've taken more damage from that Tothel because of that takedown. But the change to regurgitate and his eat minion interaction, that's the big thing. Because before, when you ganked with your regurgitate, you sort of either leapt or blinked in, regurgitated. By that time, you didn't really have your passive anymore. So you were slower than you really should be. You weren't auto-attacking as fast as you should be. And they were able to get away because of it. Now, with the fact that you can eat one of your minions from the regurgitate, yes, you're using time with your basic attacks to eat that minion, but they've reduced that time as well. It now only takes 0.2 seconds for you to eat that minion and then be back into your basic attacks. So most of probably be saying one basic attack. And then you gain increased attack speed, which you probably then make up that basic attack with. It increased movement speed, meaning you're able to stick with them for a bit longer. And then your takedown amplifies the damage which you do, which will amplify true damage as well, by the way. Bakasura is in a good spot right now, I'd say. I have to see where else the buffs have placed him. But for now, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some Bakasura. Honestly, Bakasura could be one of the off-meta picks that you see at the start of these full split. And it will do extremely well. Or extremely poorly if it gets up to that bad start. Bastet brings a hell of a load of damage. Brings hell of a lack of CC. Has a slow, has another slow, and that's about it. And without CC coming out from your jungler, you aren't really having too much of an impact, unless you're able to really kill the enemy backliners. And with dot-based effects and with good supportive characters in the game right now, like Kepri and Get being picked up a fair bit, Bastet's job becomes infinitely harder. Bastet for me is only an A- character. Would have her over the Arachne, but I would much rather have a Bakasura than a Bastet in this stage. And I can't believe I just said that sentence out loud. If your name is Scream, though, by all means pick it. Go ahead, Scream. You do you. Bellona. And with Bellona and Erlang Shen and Osiris, just had to preface this, we are not taking into consideration the Glad Shield buff of 514. Based purely on the 513, like I said before, just wanted to reiterate it here. And Bellona brings good control, brings good early game domination in that solo lane, because of the AoE basic attacks. You are able to clear the wave, clear that level 1 wave, faster than pretty much any other god out there, aside from Cabrakan. Cabrakan level 1 wave clear with Tremors is the best. And Bellona, good team fight, I would say. Good control of the early game. I think Bellona is a really strong pick still. I think in 513, you're still not going to see a basic attack warriors played, because you still want that consistent early game pressure. And with Bellona, her big burst on that bludgeon is telegraphed. You're able to just move out of the way of it, dodge it. If you miss that swing down on the bludgeon in that early mid game, you're like levels 6 through 9, you aren't going to get the pressure which you want. Other solo is going to be able to clear the wave and then fight you. My mind right now, Bellona is an A+ tier character. I kind of really do want to put her in S- right now, but we didn't see a whole load of her at LAN. Saw 1, maybe 2 games of her, so reaching her back for now. Cabrakan, next up on the list. Fantastic control, fantastic damage, and with the changes to the masks, where he can gain increased damage but take more, it's sort of offset by his passive, giving him 5% damage mitigation as well as allies in the area. He can do a lot from the jungle, I feel. I feel Cabrakan jungle is going to be one of the most underrated things in this mid-season update, because of that ranked match. I still don't really see him being played, though. Considering, if you're going to be going down that route, why not just take a regular assassin? If you're going to be going down that route, why not just build him without Rangers Mask, go into more of a tanky bruiser build, become very difficult to kill whilst also still doing the damage. Cabrakan can bring a lot of strength to his team, can bring good lockdown to his team, but to the same tune, he will still always be there as just a carbon copy of what most people call Loki, Fat Loki. Just get in there, kill one person, and then hope and pray the fuck you can get out. I do like his control of the team fights, though, because of the tectonic shift walls, because of the tremors. But he just doesn't bring enough from a Guardian standpoint to merit him being a supportive character. And his damage early game and his clear early game isn't strong enough for him to be warranted as an assassin. He's sort of in that limbo. But if you want to play him in the jungle, you have to make sure you got a good god with you in the mid lane to offset that early clear. Gods like Janus, gods like Poseidon can do extremely well as well. If you don't have those gods, you kind of screw picking up Cabrakan in the jungle. You can't really put him as support, so you have to put him in the solo lane. And, well, you want to clear with Tremors? Fine, but quite a lot of solo laners out there will just let you, and then fight you then because you just used up all your mana. Or, if they have a knock-up, god, or stun, they'll just fight you. They'll take damage. Take one or two ticks of damage of Tremors, get the minions aggro to you, and then knock you up. And then just fight you because you're taking minion aggro and they're just fighting you because of it. Cabrakan right now, in my mind, is an A- character. Just because his identity isn't focus into one point. He's not a burst guardian quite yet. You can build him bursty, and you can do well with him. It's just if you want a bursty guardian, I'm going to go for Ymir instead, because it's a lot more safer to do so, a lot more reliable playstyle from the Ymir than it is the Cabrakan. Camazotz, next up on the list. Beginning of the season, Camazotz was one of the best gods in the game. Best solo laner out there, can be played in the jungle as well. Even saw him in ADC, even saw him mid. I believe Dallas even played in support, so he did get played in all 5 roles, so congratulations to Camazotz. I think he was the first god to do that. Then he's had a massive fall from grace because of nerfs, and then a couple more nerfs after that. I believe he did get buffed recently as well in this patch, or in the patch before. Hasn't really done too much for his pick ban rate. Hasn't even do too much, my eyes, to really merit him as a pick. Because whilst he does bring burst, he doesn't bring quite enough burst to warrant his lack of CC. Got a nice slow on him, sure. But the main reason you can pick him for is that damage plus that escapability on that Bat Out of Hell. Also, you're untargetable, you're still able to do damage, you're still able to dive tiles quite freely with it. That's one of the main reasons you're picking him. It's his dive ability because of that Bat Out of Hell. Me, Camazotz is an A tier character. Can we play the solo lane still? I just don't really want to see him there, considering you would have to build him tanky these days. I want to see him in the jungle, and even then, kind of up in the air about who I would want in the jungle. Cerberus. If your name is Emilzian Callas, you can play Cerberus support. If not, look for something else. For a solo laner, Cerberus is one of the best gods you can pick right now. Cerberus brings very good control to the solo lane, very good burst damage whilst also maintaining his role as a guardian. Brings protection shred, brings slows, brings stuns, brings a huge AoE knockup into a throw into a certain spot where you actually get to see and time it quite well. You're able to burst people from that initiation. It's really strong, and he is fantastically strong. Seeing a lot of Cerberus in your games, a lot of Cerberus in the SPL. Putting him in S right now, considering 9 times out of 10, every single team's going to be playing him into the solo lane. You can see him support, which does extremely poorly when compared to solo lane performances, unless your name is Emil Callas. And that's my opinion. Of course, other supports out there can feel free to prove me wrong with that. I would love to see it, because then I get to move Cerberus up. Galanos. Ability-based hunter who has seen no play in a long time. Galanos needs some buffs. He needs some love because right now there is zero reason to pick Galanos. Kronos is going down to B tier. Because he needs someone to help him clear in the early game. His early game is absolutely atrocious. Probably the worst early game out of any ADC in the game. And he's just not going to get picked. He just straight up is not going to get picked. Wait, what about Baron? Baron is not here because, I don't know. Suppose I should really mention Baron, though. With Baron, I'm gonna put him into S-. If he was here, I'll put him in S- right now. Good damage in the early game, good damage in the mid and late game as well. Good control, but does suffer from his lack of mobility. He's got fantastic team presence, I would say, because of his slow cleanse and speed boost, as well as a massive heal if you're low health. He's got good utility for the team, as well as that stun from that Life of the Party ultimate. The issue is, he doesn't really have too much to escape a fight himself. He has to rely on hitting those targets who do have Hysteria above 30 to get that speed boost for him to maneuver around a bit better. But by that time, the fight's probably either won or lost already. They're using it to either escape or chase down a target. That's where I'll put Baron. I'll put Baron in S- if I could, but obviously there's nothing. When he said sub is bad at support, I also prefaced that by saying if your name is Callis or Emilzy, you can play him support. So, aha. Chuck. Chuck. He doesn't lose solo lane, but he doesn't win it. It's the age-old adage of, if you don't know what to play in solo lane, if you're uncomfortable in that lane, just pick Chuck, and you can't go wrong from there. But there are times when you can still go wrong by picking Chuck in a solo lane. He brings a good laning phase, don't get me wrong, it's just not something when you're mentally better than any other solo laner out there. Then his presence in that mid and late game is really centered around his AoE silence and his range slows. If you're facing up against a composition with double attack speeds, with double auto attackers, Chuck can be a decent pick. You can force out their CC immunities, you can force out their ultimates, force out them to like back off from the fight due to your rain and your AoE silence. But you're not bringing too much after that. You're not bringing that stun. You're not bringing that bang initiation from them. You're literally throwing an axe at them and they're just walking away from it, and or just taking 200 damage going, yep, that was kind of... I got tickled. Right now I see no real reason to pick Chuck. That's a shame, because, again, he can do well against double auto-attack compositions. We saw a hell of a load of those at LAN, and no Chucks. Instead he picked gods who wouldn't do too well with just their kits against double auto attackers, and they built anti-auto attack items and did exactly the same thing Chuck would do. Chang'e. Just fuck Lono's. Fuck Lono's mask. Just fuck Lono's mask. We're gonna have a lot of S+ gods here, by the way, because Lono's mask is that broken, and gods that can abuse the hell out of it are gonna be S+. But I think the only reason Chang'e actually isn't an S+ god is because you have to play her into the solo lane. Whilst with Aphrodite, you can play her in multiple roles. Artemis is just the best ADC, by far. Maybe even Chernobog is up there with her. In fact, Chernobog is up there, so I'm going to spoil you now and say Chernobog is S+. Very close to SS, but there are times where he has been beat and he has been controlled. If you're behind as a Chernobog, you don't really have anywhere to ult to, because they just surround where you've ulted up to, and then you have to land back down in the center of them, and then you just get bursted by 5 people. But back to Chang'e, you have to really play her in the solo lane to get the most use out of her. She does well against quite a lot of the cast in the solo lane, but against those dot-dealing characters, those gods who have 1-2 punches, you're not going to have that much success. So gods like Hercules, you could have success against, because you could just immune that initial pull. then he can fight them, you can dodge away from them. Gods like Guan Yu can immune most of the Tile of Assault. But when you immune them, you then get ganked. Pulling up gods like Chang'e, yes, you can immune part of the damage which he has, like that roar that he has, but then you're taking damage from his ultimate. Has good control in the fights, this Chang'e, because of that Waxing Moon, and because of her heals. Chang'e, though, is only S because of the fact that she can only really play solo lane. If she could play support as well in this current patch, S plus 100%. Chiron! Really picked as a counter to heavy CC competitions and heavy CC initiations, like Athena. Which is a shame, because he's got such a good kit around him as well. A good slow, good protection shred for himself, as well as good long-range ultimate which can help him turn the tide of a fight and survive a 1 versus 1 that he should really lose, because he could just revive himself. But he's just not seeing that, because he is picked as a cleanse bot. And it pains me to put him here, but if you're just picking him as a counter to that CC initiation, he is a B tier character right now. Which is not where I would like to put him. I'd like to put him in A-, maybe even A. But we are only seeing him as a cleanse bot. So for now, he has to remain in B. Kronos. Okay, so this is Emelito's Kronos. This is Emelito's Kronos. And this is everybody else's Kronos. What about in mid for Chiron? We don't see him in mid at all. He just gets overshadowed in mid by other ADC mids. Yeah, Kronos, fantastic god right now. Good control. Very difficult to lock down and deal with, especially because of that accelerate and that rewind, giving him 2 lives to deal with. Kronos, very difficult to deal with. Can play multiple positions as well. The Warlock staff, which he does like and tend to use, did get nerfed slightly going into this patch, but it still brings that health which he needs. Doesn't get it for the mana, you get it for the health, you get it for the survivability, and that's exactly what it brings. That's survivability. Kronos is very difficult to deal with because of that. Look, where is he? Chiron is down here. On to Cucullin. Cucullin, one of the strongest solo laners right now. And with Gladiator Shield on him, and maybe even a Mystical Mail, he is almost impossible to deal with because he just heals too much and does too much damage to you back innately with his Ventanger and Mystical Mail combination. His second form brings a lot of control and a lot of aggression in that early game, and most of the time you're going to see that transition into invades when he starts hitting level 6 and level 7, because you can clear the wave quickly enough, rage transform at the same time, which means you don't want to fight him. He'll then invade your back camps, then look to probably invade your speed buff, because you cannot fight him in that wave. Because you'll just take too much damage and just force you back to base. At which point you're then not able to help with that invade when he's detransformed. So, kind of counterintuitive play to be able to deal with the Cucullin is you want him to transform on that wave, you want to recede pressure on that, want him to rotate over, where he's then isolating himself, you then 3-man collapse on him when he's detransformed, which you're then able to kill him. But he probably hasn't used his Spear of Mortal Pain, meaning he has to knock people up, and then he Sam leaps away. So even the non-intuitive counterplay is still not enough, really, to deal with him at times. Cucullin, for my money right now, is the best solo laner in the game. Maybe Chang'e, maybe Zhonghui are up there as well. Zhonghui probably is definitely going to beat him with that Lono's mask change. Again, fuck Lono's. Cucullin, in my money, is an S tier character. Cupid! You're not seeing Cupid. His ultimate's just not good. It feels sort of is meant to be this big teamfight changing ultimate, but it brings a mez which breaks itself. And it breaks itself because you want to build Crusher on him. Because he's got massive ability damage. You build Trans, you build your Warrior Tapper, you then build Crusher, but then with your Crusher, you're then breaking the mez yourself. So Cupid just isn't that good of a god right now. Cupid, I would still pick him again over Chiron. Cupid does have more applications than Chiron outside of a cleanse bot. But I would still only pick them side by side. See, there's a very stark difference between some ADCs. Yeah, I agree with him on that. Cullen just gets better because of the blue buff nerfs. They changed the mana regen from 25 MP5 to 15 MP5. And you can gain mana back as well, 2% from hitting enemy gods with your abilities. RG had a strong showing at LAN when she was picked, mostly because I think the only person that played her was adapting. And Energy just played that LAN like absolute monsters. RG does pretty good control and good damage. The issue is that her early game isn't that great. So if you're able to punish and play against the RG aggressively in that early game, you're able to then win off of it. If you let her get to that mid and late game even, she will ruin your life. Because that Paolo ultimate brings so much control, forces a hell of a lot of beats to go down, and spreads out the teamfight massively. Against the Darchi, you have to spread out in the teamfight, otherwise she is going to be pulling 4 or 5 people or forcing 4 or 5 sets of beats. By that point, she then just teleports onto one of the isolated gods and kills them. You don't have to pull people in to be able to isolate and kill them. You just do that innately by spreading them out because of your presence on that Paolo. Her confirm on buffs just isn't that strong either because she doesn't have burst. Her burst is on her 1, but she has dot damage on top of that, meaning if you use it for that confirm, you're then losing DPS on it, meaning you take longer to clear buffs. If you use it for that burst and for that dot, you then don't have burst to secure it, meaning you can't get invaded on very easily. Gods like Hun Batz who just have that burst instantly with that overhand smash. Dargia brings good control, has to be picked alongside certain gods that can help bring her out from that struggling early game. But once she's in that mid game, she can take over a game completely. For my money, A+. Discordia. Much like Nike, you are mainly picking Discordia for the passive. But unlike Nike, the rest of your kit's good. The rest of your kit is something that you would like to have as well. With Discordia, the apple of Discord is really what sells the kit. Not just the Strife and Unruly magic combination, it is that apple of Discordia. Brings cripple and intoxication to the enemies. And can explode and do massive amounts of damage. If you're in the middle of a team fight, you're able to throw that apple of Discord and then Strife a couple of people together. You're going to get massive damage and probably win the team fight yourself because you punish their positioning. You have to position yourself extremely well against the Discordia to punish her. Even if you do manage to avoid the burst of her abilities and burst of her combination, she will then just jump into a fog, go invisible, lower her cooldowns consistently because that fog will reduce her cooldown so long as she is in it, and then she'll hit with a combo all over again. How do you deal with her? Simple, you deal with her like any other mage, just jump on her. Just get to her and kill her. Her CC immunity on the Apple of Discordia is really strong, considering it lasts for a lot longer than most other CC immunities would from a mage. But it's just not really gonna save her from 2 or 3 people jumping on her. Because it takes a while to wind up that Apple of Discordia as well. So you can kill her as she is winding that up. So she wouldn't even get her ability off in that team fight. How about Discordia? I would pick her alongside Agni. I think Discordia is an S- character right now. Brings good control, good damage, doesn't really have a great level 1, and that's one of the big reasons you aren't really seeing it as much as other gods like Toth or Janus. Because they are a bit safer whilst also not having that level, whilst also having a good level 1. But it just doesn't have either. Is Discordia Ultimus missed in Pro League? No, that would be Spirits of the Nine Winds. Erlang Shen. Remember, I'm repeating this again for people who only just joined in for the stream, or people who just skipped to this point in the video because you want to see where I play Erlang Shen. We're looking at 513 only, meaning Glad Shield buff is not being talked about here, the one that gives you healing on your basic attacks. So, Erlang Shen in the solo lane, not that great. Erlang Shen in the jungle, great. That's where you're playing it right now. And even then, you get a pin, you get your knock-up with your turtle, and then you're in the middle of everybody. United's Blessing will give you some damage mitigation and allow you to heal up, but because you're building aggressively with that sort of in-hand based build with stone cutting and maybe even a crusher, or just, stone cutting into some tents or even a bit more of aggressive items, you are then just going to be killed because you've gone in aggressively, you've used up some CC, you've used up your escape in order to try and get that kill. You are then crowd controlled and then killed. And what's more, you have to get Blink as the Erlang Shen in that jungle position. You have to get beads, you have to get Blink, meaning you aren't going to be able to then aggress with Shell or aggress with Thorns like you would do with any other warrior. If you're playing him in the solo lane, you don't have to get that Blink, because you're going to be using it as a heal more so than a taunt. And you'll be using that taunt onto the backliners when you're already in their phases, because you managed to swoop around the team fight to their backline. Whilst with Assassin, you don't get a chance to do that. And if you're playing Erlang Shen in the jungle, you are playing him as an Assassin. But because he can play multiple roles, because he can play both of them similarly, just with different builds, you are going to be able to predict where the Erlang Shen's going to be in the team fights. I think right now he is an A-tier character, although I anticipate when the Glad Shield buffs do come through, he is going to be going up in the tier list. Yeah, I said he was S-. They just haven't updated him on here. Fafnir. Double Hunter compositions seeing a resurgence. Fafnir also sees a resurgence. And he brings good control. You wouldn't really think it, but the damage amplification from Coerce is where this control comes from. It's not from CC, it's from damage. But unlike the Ares, you are not the one having to apply that damage. And even if you can't miss your Coerce. But if people miss their abilities from that Coerce, it's fine, because they still have basic attacks. You're buffing your in-hand characters anyway. So it's more guaranteed damage coming out from your support. His passive also allows him to stay ahead of gold from the enemy support, which means he's staying ahead of the game. Able to get his 5th or 6th item online a bit earlier than the enemy support by like a minute or two, which gives you a good buffer in that late game fight to then win the game. Because you then transform into a dragon, you have 5 items, they have 4, 4.5, and you just win because of it. Game goes even throughout, Fafnir will just win that late game team fight because of his AoE coerce, because of his item advantage. Passive also gives him some damage mitigation, which is good. And that hammer toss giving us AoE slow is rather annoying. I will admit, that slow is rather annoying. Fafnir, from my mind right now, I would kind of put him in S. Given double hunter compositions and given how strong he is with them, given the setup he can provide and the peel he can provide, I'll put him in S. As well as he's able to avoid damage with his ultimate as well. Which is really, really strong. If you're trying to Toth ult him, he can just pop his ultimate the second you pop yours and you're going to miss. Even if you go straight through him, because he's damage immune whilst transforming up into a dragon. What's more, if you're building if you have gods who have high attack speed steroids in their kit, they don't have to really build attack speed elsewhere. Because you were just going to overcap him with. It gives an auto attack speed increase, which is what we're really talking about. And also it gives you increased damage, which is where you can apply it to both abilities and auto attacks. Fenrir. I was surprised we didn't see Fenrir. Especially in the meta where Hebo was dominant. Because a lot of people like to joke about it, but Fenrir is really strong against Hebo. Really able to just sit on the Hebo, not let him do what he wants in an early game, and then punish him for get punished for picking the Hebo. but we just didn't see him. He could play multiple roles, but we didn't see him. Which is such a shame, because I think he's got a very good kit for that sort of warrior-esque jungle. You can play him in the solo lane and do well with him, I feel. Be able to drag an enemy carry away from the fight, or at least force their beads, because you're then dragging them towards your team where he's just going to get bursted. You could separate people from these fights. You could separate people from the game. But people just aren't picking Fenrir. People aren't picking him because he's very telegraphed in his play. He has to get very close to do his damage. He has to leap in to do his damage to initiate his fights. Because he wants that stun. He wants to stop you using CC immune abilities, because that's just then you win that trade. You aren't seeing Fenrir because he's very aggressive in his play and very easy to punish because of it. Me, unfortunately, Fenrir does have to be an A- right now. If we see him played, I'm moving him up because I think he's got a fantastic kit, but we're not seeing him played, so he's going to have to stay low for now. Freya, from a competitive standpoint. We're back to the beginning of Season 5. Fan-fucking-tastic. Freya in this patch is just unbelievably dumb. She clears waves so easily. Her mana regen is absolutely absurd. You think she's out of mana, then all of a sudden she just basic attacks a couple times in melee stance and she's full mana again. She can banish herself from the fight whilst also killing you with one ability, which is her ultimate. She can banish you the fight, allows her to set herself up, and she can one-shot you with a basic attack. No other hunter in the game can one-shot you with a basic attack. No one. Hell, even mages have a hard time one-shotting you with a basic attack. Or with just one or two abilities. Freya just does that for free. She needs nerfs, and I think she is getting them in 5.14. I need to re-see those patch notes because I had to refresh myself in the 5.13 notes, but god damn, Freya is absolutely broken right now, and I'm absolutely happy we aren't seeing competitive games right now on 5.13. Because if she even gets through one set of picks and bans, people will see the nightmare that she would cause in competitive. Ganesh. In terms of tier 5 skins, D tier. Do not vote for him. Vote for Ares. In terms of a god standpoint, fantastic support. I think that he is one of the better supports. He actually kind of got buffed in 5.14. Are you fucking kidding me? I believe the United Invitational is going to be played on 5.14, so... Oh yeah, I forgot, she got reduced mana cost. Really, Afro S+, strange. It's because of the fact that Lona's mask is broken on her. More on that in 5.14. But back to Ganesh. Good support. The fact that he can just gift you kills. Doesn't really have to be as close as other supports to get the shared farm experience because of the fact that he will be in range because of his passive. 20 extra units in terms of assist range. And he will not get last hits. He is guaranteed to get his Guardian's Blessing online first, provided neither support dies. For Ganesh, why don't you see him? Well, it's because he has to sacrifice his dash to engage with really a fight. He's more of a very peel-oriented support. And you're not really seeing that, because your supports want to be the ones engaging. If you drop those Dharmic Pillars, in even like the slightest of a misposition, enemy's just going to walk around it, enemy's going to jump over it, enemy's going to ignore it completely. and then you don't have an ultimate ability. You have that big cone silence, but you can get stunned out of it, you can get knocked up out of it, you can just get interrupted from it completely. Then you have to use your dash as a knockup, at which point you then root yourself in place, then take massive ability damage. His initiation is a bit lackluster. His peel is phenomenal on single target. You can't AoE peel like you would do with a Geb or a Sylvanas with their ultimates, because you only really have a slow to AoE peel, and a silence isn't really going to stop people. But Ganesh, for my money right now, is an A+ support. It's for a competitive tier list. I'm going to actually copy this. Well, no. Back onto more supports though. We were just really talking about it with Ganesh, and that's the Geb. Better initiation than the Ganesh. A lot more difficult to deal with if you are building double hunters with crits, because considering, yes, is that anti-crit passive, and his shield is the most infuriating ability, or one of the most infuriating abilities to deal with in the game, because you think you've got somebody, you think they're dead, and then bang, they're slapped on with another 800 HP. Good initiation, good peel, good rotatability with that rollout. I think Geb is an S- tier support right now. I would have Fafnir over him, but I would definitely have him way above Ganesh. He may even be S right now, but we just haven't seen too much of him. We saw a lot more Fafnir than we did Geb at the LAN. So for now, he's going to stay in S-. Telkines is, yeah. Telkines is really strong enough. And he is quite easy to deal with in a competitive. Yeah, Capri Revive. We're going to get onto that much later. Been an hour and a half. Yeah, the big weakness of Geb is the fact that his dual lane isn't really that great. It's a bit hit or miss, but you can get pressure with him. You can do well with him in the dual lane. But moving on to Geb. Well, moving away from Geb, sorry, and on to Guan Yu. I have been doing this for a while. Guan Yu. You're picking him in the solo lane. You can play him as support, but we haven't really seen that too much these days, and I don't think you're going to be seeing it in 5.13 or 5.14, considering Guardians are just much better. So with Guan Yu, he shreds protections massively with his Tallow Assault, and he gives it to himself, meaning he's very difficult to be dealt with in lane once he has that Tallow Assault being channeled. After a few seconds of that Tallow Assault dropping, that's when you're able to gank him and could you quickly kill him. But then he goes onto a CCV and ultimate, slows you down, and just walks away because he's on a horse. And faster than you. He also is able to heal and sustain his minions throughout that laning phase, also able to heal and sustain his allies through the fights. So why aren't you seeing him? Well, it's because his lane pressure just isn't really there. With other gods, you can sort of use your ability on the wave and the enemy solo laner at the same time. With Guan Yu, you have to channel that ability. They can just walk away from that channel, they can sidestep that channel, and they can just get away from it. You're leveling up that Tallow Assault first, which also means that your burst potential isn't really there, in terms of buff invades and buff secures. So for example, Cucullin, with his spear. He just throws that spear off, that's 250 or so damage, let's say, instantly. And it's a slight stun on minions, but we won't really get that. Whilst with Tallow Assault, you're doing consistent tick damage every second. For a few seconds. That's going to be 60 or 70 damage a tick, let's say. Cucullin will out-secure you every single time, because you don't have the burst on Tallow Assault. So you aren't able really to defend your buffs without sacrificing your ultimate, which sacrifices your survivability. Which means the jungler then comes over and kills you. You aren't really able to invade buffs unless you have a massive advantage over your solo lane opponent, because they can just go over and stop you and out-secure you and then fight you, because you're then in their jungle. And people rotate over to help him. So with Guan Yu, you can get the lead with Guan Yu. You're just unable to apply that lead as well as you would do with other gods. He's strong when paired with certain gods and with certain playstyles, but you have to make sure you get those playstyles working. For me, Guan Yu is an A+ character. Strong when you pick him, can be picked up in a lot of situations. I just wouldn't see him in most of my game. Hachiman. Turn to the top half of ADCs here. Well, with Hachiman, you haven't really seen him too much recently. Because most of the strength from him in the past was that laning phase with that Heavenly Banner. You just were unbeatable in lane. You cleared better than everybody else. You were then able to poke them and out-trade them from a distance with that, with your first ability, the Dragon Arrows. And then if you ever got into trouble, if you ever wanted to aggress a bit more fully, you then went onto a horse, slowed them, and they were able to dash and stun them. Or you could get away on that horse as well, similar to Guan Yu. So what happened to Hachiman? Well, his Heavenly Banner damage got reduced, and that really reduced his lane pressure. You now no longer automatically win the lane. You have to really fight for it in that early game. You have to rely on your support combo to get the exact place you want to be, which is at their tower line, just poking them out consistently. So you also have to put yourself out of position to really get that stun and get that trade-off. You miss your Heavenly Banner, you have to dash in and get the stun to start getting that better of the trade, at which point you then sacrifice your escape most of the time. And if you want to take yourself out of the fight, you have to take yourself completely out of the fight. Unlike with a Ram, who can literally just hang up in the air. Unlike a Jing Wei, who can hang up in the air for a bit to take themselves out of the fight. You have to move away from the fight, go back to base and heal up if you wanted to. It's difficult to play Hachiman in this environment when you don't have that automatic win condition of you just win lane. You have to earn it, you have to fight for it, and that puts Hachiman's value down a bit. I'll still play him above most of the other ADCs on the list. I think right now he is an S- character. Hades. I have not played Hades with Lona's Mask. I would like to think Hades with Lona's Mask is one of the most obnoxious things to deal with. And I invite somebody in chat to tell me whether it is or not. I just don't really see him being played because he has to sacrifice his mobility, sacrifice his escape to go in and clear the wave. His early game lane presence is great, what I will say. Can't really solo him down in wave because he has to. Can't really solo him down in wave because he just dashes in and heals most of it up. Or he stands to the side of the wave, silences it, and then heals up anyway because he's then just got blighted minions exploding and damaging. And if you stand near that wave, you are then completely fucked because you took most of your health and damage. He's an early game lane winner. And with Lona's Mask, you're able to transition that into a good mid-game. Before, the biggest problem with Hades is that his ultimate really made him the sitting duck of dreams for you if you're against him. Oh, there's a Hades ulting. He's going to be standing there for a few seconds while I charge up my Thothol. Bang! You're gone. I don't care anymore. Or, oh, he dashed in to side of me by about 2 feet too long. I'm just going to ignore him now, considering he can't get to me anymore. I believe you do still need Blink on the Hades. His silence is good. With Lona's, I think he just becomes a nightmare to deal with. I honestly think Hades with Lonos might be one of the most infuriating things to deal with alongside Lonos Young. I haven't tested it yet, so I don't know how much it's going to be. So for now, I'm going to take the safe option and put him in A+. Gonna do some testing on it though, because I only just thought of that now and I thought, holy fuck, that sounds disgusting. Oh, he might move up after some testing, he might move down after some testing, because it might just be completely useless, but he then has a lot of control in the fights, which hails back to his Guardian era days. Oh, I digress. It's over to Hebo. And Hebo, you have a fantastic jungler. You also have a fantastic mid laner if your name's Paul. But we're going to assume that we're talking for the majority of the pro scene here and say he's a jungler at heart. He did recently get a change where his early game damage output is not as strong, but it does gain survivability for it. And at the pro level, they didn't really want that survivability. They wanted that raw damage out. It was a buff if you were a casual player and somebody who was new to the game, considering he was less infuriating to deal with, and you were able to survive a bit longer as that close-range playstyle. But from a pro perspective, he got nerfed because of it. Because you weren't really playing super aggressively unless you knew you could win the trade, which most of the time you could because you have a 3-second cooldown on your ability. So he then got nerfed because he does less damage in that early game, which is one of the reasons you picked him, was to bully out that early game. He had great secure at camps because his wand still does ability-sized damage on a 3-second cooldown, so you could clear camps faster than pretty much every other jungler out there. And you had range-based attacks, meaning you could help contest mids a bit easier, help the mid laner clear a bit easier, because you didn't have to go up too close to the wave. You could stay about 40 units away, walk up to do your water cannon, then walk back a bit, and then continue basic attacking. Also, if you're an assassin, you had to stand right next to the wave to continue basic attacking it after you use your ability, which meant you were susceptible to damage, susceptible to take poke, as well as your wave. So Hebo was good in that early game. He still is tremendously good in that early game. I can still do work in that mid and late game, because he is a powerful late game mage. Water Spout into Water Cannon is very difficult to deal with if you're caught unawares by it, because once you're in the air, you better hope to God you're an Aphrodite, otherwise you're going to get hit by a crushing wave and just die, or Water Cannon if you just have it up, and take most of your health and you'd be forced out of the fight. Hebo for me right now is a strong god. Very strong god. Requires setup, requires some help to get him through his punishable early game, because you can still evade on him, can still do extremely well. I think he is an S tier character right now. He may fall down a bit in the next few metas, but I don't see any reason why he needs to. Hell! Reiterating one more time, fuck Lonos. Okay, someone's using the Alexa. So, with Hell, build some survivability, build Lonos, and you become a heal bot. Hell was always thought of as a heal bot in competitive, but now it's a very difficult situation to deal with her, because she heals, she will not die, and she will just keep all of her teammates alive because. So with Hell, player in solo lane, she can get punished. She can play in support, she doesn't bring the CC that you'd want to. All she bringing is that heal. And that cleanse. But you can still punish Hell, you can still go onto Hell, you can still kill the Hell. She just becomes a lot more difficult to do so because of that Lona's damage mitigate. It does in 5.14, we are talking about 5.13 only though. And most of the times in competitive play, you aren't really putting it into Dark Stance unless you've won that fight already. You've done all the healing you need to do, then you go to Dark Stance, and then help clean up the rest of the fight. My money, I think Hell right now is sitting in the same place as Chang'e. Don't really see her in any position, per se. You really see her play in the solo lane and do the same thing as Chang'e. You don't really see her in support. She can do well in the solo lane, she can get pressure in the solo lane because she's a mage, and because she has good sustain. She does run into mana issues because the blue buff is a bit weaker, and that's where her big weakness is. Her early game mana sustain is kind of atrocious. That's why you will punish her. Achilles, next up. And I'm actually going to be taking a page out of NA's book here. This is one of the things we're going to defer to NA for. Because North America seems to think he is a fantastic counter to the Cucullin. Which I can see. The Cucullin wants to play aggressive, wants to play in your face, and Hercules will, even if you activate mitigate wounds and then you get anti-heal for 50%, you will still just have more power than the Cucullin because of your passive. You will still just smack him with your basic attacks. At which point you'll then just dash onto him, bowler him, and the Cucullin is probably gone. Hercules is difficult to deal with, but with good anti-healing, that's where his real strength as a frontliner comes on, is that mitigate wounds healing. And if you're able to deal with that, he's a lot more easy to deal with. Especially if you're able to duke his combo. You're able to duke that Earth Breaker into Driving Strike combination. You can deal with the Hercules a lot more easy. I think NA are onto something with him being a counter to Cullen, but I don't anticipate it staying around for much longer with the changes of 514 coming through. I think right now he is an S- character. Could be seeing some fall downs, and I think we will see him fall down in 514. Hou Yi, next up list. I think Hou Yi is decent right now. I think he brings good control with his ultimate. I think he brings good damage with his ricochet. But in a meta where we're currently building crits over attack speed, Hou Yi is suffering, considering he doesn't really have as much attack speed as other hunters. That's intentional because his Mark of the Golden Crow passive means he does more damage per basic attack. You kind of do want to build ability on him, but you want to also build lifesteal. So you're going to go into Devo's Gauntlets, you're going to go into your attack speed boots rather than Warrior Tabai, and then go into stuff like your Executioner, maybe even some crit if you wanted to. You can still go crit on Hou Yi, but he does do a lot better with a in-hand attack speed based build with Titan's Bane, because he's got this weird mix between in-hand character and ability based. That weird mix puts him in an awkward spot depending on what the meta is, because you're not going to fully go into crit, because you're not really a crit based character. You're also not really going to go fully into attack speed, because you want to use your abilities as well, you want some power behind it. So that awkward spot will mean that Hou Yi's never really going to be at the top of the ADC pile, but he's still going to be picked up because of his good control, because of his good ability to burst down objectives. He can't secure them very well, but he can burst them down very quickly because of his ultimate, and create a good zone because of that slow field. His jump is also one of the most telegraphed abilities in Smite, and one of the worst things to go up against on the week. I think, in terms of an ADC, I would take Hachiman over the Hou Yi. Hou Yi in A+. Sure. Sure you can, Portal Gun, but it might be a while before I'm done. We've been going for about an hour and 30 minutes now, and as you can see, we're really like halfway through. This is a lot longer than the first tier list I did, which was 2 hours. I've come prepared with a drink this time, Jesus. Thank God for that. Hun Batz. Great jungler to have on your team. Good control. His early game is kind of shocking though. It did get buffed though. Maybe thinking, well, he lost his crit passive. That's not really a buff. But he kind of still does have a pseudo crit, giving him extra damage on his next basic attack as confirmed damage now. Every single time your next basic attack will do more damage. It's much better than the 20% chance for extra crit. For a crit. You're able to clear camps a bit more efficiently with the Hun Batz. The issue is his overhand smash takes a while to go off, is very interruptible. You're picking him for his Fear No Evil. There's no other way around it. You're picking him for his Fear No Evil. His big AoE crowd control ultimate to sway the team fight, to be able to lock down a couple of characters and kill them in the middle of the team fight. The issue is he has no CC immunity of his own, so he's very easy to pick off in that early game. Easy to punish throughout that early and mid game, and if you can force his ultimate before the team fight starts by just jumping on him or forcing him away, forcing his blink even, he becomes a lot easier to deal with. Because he's forced to use it defensively rather than aggressively like he wants to. Hun Batz can be punished in an early game, can be dissuaded from being able to do what he wants, but it's still a phenomenal pick, can still control the pace of a game, can still control the pace of a team fight very easily, and can help secure objectives with his ultimate. That's one thing that's overlooked, is his ability to just put that Fear No Evil down onto an objective, force anybody who jumps in away from trying to steal it, or you can go and find the mage and force them away from it. If the mage is dead, then you pretty much have a free objective with the Hun Batz ultimate. So for me, Hun Batz right now is an S- character. Decent early clear, although is kind of punishable if you're able to put the pressure on him. Good team fight if you're able to stay ahead and play aggressively with it. Good self-peel, otherwise. Still wouldn't really want to pick him every single game. ISIS, on the theme of good objective play. that's pretty much what you're picking Isis for, is objectives and good control with your silence and spirit balls. He does a lot of damage right now. And that's why I think you can go Lono's Isis. Lono's Mask makes its return on mages. Who would have fucking thought? Oh, God, I hate Lono's. And don't forget, Circle of Protection is a massive AoE heal, and Lono's will not diminish that in this patch, meaning you're getting full benefit from that Lono's Mask detonation of Circle of Protection. You can control the team fight so well with 40% CDR Isis on Lono's Mask. And then you can help burst out objectives with it as well. Yes, you're going to do less damage because you have built Lono's Mask, but you just control them. That's all you're there for, is to control. You're there to stun, you're there to silence, you're there to heal up your team and provide them with damage mitigation. And you're there to help secure objectives with Circle of Protection. I mean, for my money, Isis is going to be an A+ tier character right now. But don't be surprised if we don't see it. Don't be surprised if she does move down at some point in this list, at some point in the next couple lists. Izanami. Good, clear. Not so great and everywhere else. For me, Izanami... You need to get the pressure with her early, and she doesn't always guarantee herself that. And mainly because she wants to clear like Freya does, but Freya just does it better. She has no identity right now, isn't it? She's there for the clear, she's there for the early game, but can't win it because supports are there consistent. Junglers are ganking over in the dual lane right now. Her dash is very easily telegraphed. You know exactly where she's going to go when she goes to that stealth. And a silence field on her ultimate is not that strong. You pretty much want to build crit on Izanami, but even then, the fact that your damage is split up on your basic attacks, 75 to 25 on the way in and on the way out, and you're not really going to get the full benefit from it unless you crit both times, at which point you're then hoping for more RNG on your side rather than against it. The big reason you have it is for that AoE silence and that early game play, the early game push, the early game pressure. And they're just not as optimal as you want them to be. Izanami is an A- character. Has good early game. That's it. Janus. Him and Toth, I'm actually going to do together. So, him and Toth together. Because they are both pretty much the exact same. Long range artillery mages who will abuse the fuck out of any item that's broken on mages. Chronos Pendant busted on them because they're just infinitely safer with them. Soul River busted on them because they can apply it without you being able to retaliate whatsoever. Old Rangers Mask was unbelievably broken on them because they didn't care about the loss of movement speed. They didn't care about the increased damage you took with it because they were just so far away from the fight while still doing their damage, and they just one-shot you because of it. I still think that Janus and Toth are the two strongest mages in the game right now. And you're playing them in mid lane, you are going to be picking them up every single game there now. The only reason I'm actually going to put Janus below Toth is because we're seeing heavy focus on double Hunter meta, and Janus got overlooked for a fair few number of games in the real recent LAN. Toth is going to be up at the S+, whilst Janus is going to be at the S tier category. Don't forget, Soul River did get changed a bit weaker onto Janus, sorry, whilst Toth still maintains absolute supremacy with it. Jing Wei. I think Jing Wei is one of the most balanced ADCs right now. But the reason she's being picked up a bit more is because crit's in the meta, which means Jing Wei is in the meta. And if you're playing up against ADCs and dual lanes who are playing hyper-aggressive or really want to punish enemy ADCs, you can just play Jing Wei and just stay back indefinitely. one of the big things which I thought we would see a lot more of on Jing Wei is starting tier 2 boots, starting rep buff, and then flying, go back to base, picking up warrior tab by flying back to lane for the next wave, and the purple buff. I honestly thought you would see a lot more of that. Or you could just, tier 2 boots, do both buffs and then fly back to base. Get whichever boots you want afterwards and then fly back into lane. You'll then have 40 power compared to nothing on the enemy on the other ADC. You will then win trades every single time. You'll run out of mana consistently. You'll just have more power than them by a lot. So your abilities and your base cards are gonna smack them. Yes, this is pre-Lono's healing nerf. This is 513. Next patch, the healing mage is gonna go. Yeah, don't worry. So back to Jing Wei. She doesn't lose farm. She can rotate to fights extremely quickly, and that's one of the reasons you're seeing her a lot. Is because her ability to rotate defensively to team fights is phenomenal. Only outshone by Chernobog. So you're going to see a fair bit of Jing Wei in competitive play when you're seeing Chernobog in the enemy team, or when you're seeing teams who need to rotate and defend their buffs early because they have a sub-optimal jungler for pressure. So Jing Wei right now is S-. Okay. Reload. Kali, next up on the list. Kali, for my money, is probably the only god who will make use out of new bumbers. Because she will have an ultimate that just means she doesn't care about taking extra. She will then just run at you so quickly and kill you because she doesn't really care about the loss of damage, because most of her damage is going to come off from... Most of that's going to be offset by the extra penetration she gets onto her targets, as well as the fact that she wants to do damage with kin size, with Executioner, with Odysseus' bow, with Stonecutting Sword. She can make use out of the mask. She doesn't have to buy it, though. Doesn't have to buy it, and that's the scary thing. She can still just forego that mask and still go into a 6-slot item like Bloodforge and make herself even more ridiculously unkillable. If she gets her mark reset off in a fight, she's golden. The issue you have is, anti-heal is extremely prevalent right now. And with anti-heal, Kali's target passive is not that great. Because whilst you will heal for 80% without anti-healing, if they have, let's say, 80% anti-heal, 2 items, all they need there is like 2 items, 80% anti-heal, you will then only be healing for 8%, 10% of your base health, with about 200 health heal. Not that much, just one basic attack from an enemy ADC and you're gone again afterwards. Her early game is quite strong. The issue is her level 1 is just not that great. Her level 2 is not that great. Make Kali right now is A-, maybe even A. I'm gonna put her in A. I'd much rather have a Kali than a Bastet. At least with Kali, you can bring a stun. You can build her a bit tanky if you wanted to. I don't know why you would, but you can. You have a stun. You have good heal. You have good control. You have good distractibility in the fight. Whilst Bastet just jumps in and dies. Cats just die. Bastet wants to get the early game going, and she just doesn't ring. Khepri, next up on the list. The hug bug, the dad bug. Khepri, strong support right now. Has a good laning phase, good pressure over there in that dual lane. His ultimate is really, really strong. The issue is he doesn't have an initiation. Doesn't have that big AoE initiation. Doesn't have a blink Mighty Yawning. Doesn't have a blink Cataclysm. Doesn't have a blink Wrath of Terror. It's really a very peel supportive type of support. Meaning you're going to want to draft them alongside gods who can initiate from the jungle or from the solo lane. You don't really have those gods, you're really relying on single target initiation with your route into a pull. And that's very easily telegraphed. The second you pull down that route, people are going to leap away, people are going to dash away, because they know you're going to be looking for that pull next. His big saving factor is the fact that he can just revive somebody on his team. He could sway a team fight by reviving somebody instantly. And there's nothing too much you can really do about it, because anti-heal won't reduce the amount of healing they come back with. The thing you have to do is get on top of the Capri when you pop that revive, because then you will also... You know where he's going, you know where he's reviving. Because then you just pile onto where the Capri is, you pile onto where he died if he's dead already, or he got that revive off. And then the character he's revived is just dead again. They do have to invest more resources and more time into it, which does give you a chance to turn the fight. The Capri doesn't guarantee you a fight win because you got off a revive. It gives you a strong chance of winning, but it doesn't give you a guarantee. I would pick him alongside Geb currently at S-. Kukulkan! Next up on the list. Why did my Alexa just... What? My Echo Dot just went off because I said Kukulkan. I don't know. Yeah, Kukulkan's next up on the list, and he brings wave clear. He brings good turtling. His ultimate is very difficult to hit. You need to set it up, and it's very telegraphed if you have somebody with a setup for it, like Athena. Like Taunt, I'm going to immediately beat this Taunt right now, because I know a Kukulkan ult's coming to. Good zone control for his ability, good objective burst and secure because of his kit, and good defendability on the bases. Because you just throw a tornado down and then the wave is gone. The issue is you then use your tornado, one of your best damaging abilities, to defend the Phoenix. The Kukulkan's kit does point to him being good, and in the next patch he is a bit better than he was before, considering Book of Thoth now gives more passive power on it than it would do before. Kukulkan, still for my money though, is an A-tier god. Not going to see too much of him. And it's just going to wallow around in A for a while until they buff him. Because just lackluster damage right now. Lackluster his kit. Very easy to jump on him. Very easy to punish him and put him down in the early game. Because his self-peel is a slow and a speed boost on himself. No CC immunity. No real way to get out of a bad situation that he puts himself in. He just dies because Kumbhakana next up on the list. And for Kumbhakana... Good control, good early game. Great passive to base around in teamfights. If you have your passive up, you can play more aggressive than pretty much any other support in the game. Considering you know that they're going to have to waste time basic attacking you down to then properly kill you whilst you're in that passive, whilst your team's just wailing away on them. Or if you're like sat in a really tight spot, enemies have to pile around that tight spot, which means they're susceptible to big AoE damages, like, for example, a Kraken. For my money, Kumbhakana is a strong support, but his early game isn't super broken. He's mainly there for kill lanes. You pick something like Kumbhakana or Artemis, you are looking to kill the enemy. You're looking to kill the enemy dual lane. That Grogu Strike is very quickly telegraphed. It takes a while to go off, but being able to be hit, then able to be hit quite significantly whilst doing it a couple times or even 3 times in the early game. Or if you have a god like Capri on the enemy team, they can interrupt it. They can then just go on your ADC. Use it. It's very easy to counter in the lane if you have the gods to deal with it. If you don't, Kumbhakana is a strong pick. You have to pick him later on in the draft to really make full use of his kit. And for me, that's an A+ character. I think that would just push him over the edge, though, considering that would make his ult very easy to hit, and that's not what they want. Kuzenbo. You know me, I love Kuzenbo. I think he's fantastic. Unfortunately, he's a -. Blue buff got nerfed. He can't really do too much in the solo lane. His kit really points to him being good against double hunters. Again, he just isn't picked. It's a similar situation to what Shuck is in. Just isn't picked against double hunter compositions. The thing that saves him from being B-tier like Chuck is that out of every single god in the game, he has the best zoning potential of any god, period. You just go onto an enemy ADC, there is nothing they can do about you when you have Thorns and Hide the Nemean line. There is nothing they can do. You can just walk at them, you can dash at them, you can throw a tunnel at them, you can knock them up. They have to run away from you, because you will kill them. If you use your Thorns, if you use your Shell Spikes correctly, the enemy ADC cannot get away from you. They cannot just burst you. The issue is, you are then bursted yourself if you are caught under any amount of CC. You have to focus out one target and separate them from the fight, and you cannot do that in the late game. One of the big things I don't see many Kusanwa players doing is jumping in with their ult to separate somebody from the team fight and then pushing them away. Because then you have done your job, you have separated the enemy carry from the team fight, and you're able to deal with them very effectively. As well, right now we're going to be seeing an A-. Doesn't really have a place in the meta. Speaking of not having a place in the meta, Loki! If you're an Xbox and your name is Wolves, congratulations, you can play Loki. If you're anybody else, no, don't play him. I don't see him being useful on PC, at all. 100% not useful on PC. You're not going to play him in solo because early game he just gets shit on. You're not going to play him in jungle because early game he just gets shit on. You need somebody in that solo lane to be a bruiser, and Loki's not going to bring that. You can do that with Chang'e, you can do that with Shangri, you can do that with most mages you put there because they can build defensively. But Loki, you have to build damage. You have to build that core reduction. You have to build a specific build with him to do the effectiveness of Loki things. And with Loki, you have to go into an enemy ADC. You have to go into the enemy backliners. You have to try and kill the backliners. Or you split push. And split pushing, whilst it is an effective strategy if you're behind, you kind of don't want to plan to play from behind. He just has nothing to offer from a competitive standpoint, in my eyes. There is no reason to pick Loki. He needs... I just think he needs a rekit. I don't really see any way of... I just don't see any way of making his kit, the way it is right now, competitively viable for an extended period of time. Medusa. Strong ADC can be played both mid and in the ADC position. God damn. With Medusa. Good mid laner, good ADC. Viper shot is disgusting. Makes probably the most difficult ADC to box. She has probably the best burst of any ADC in the game in a 1v1 because of those Viper shots. She has great teamfight because of her CC mean but that Stone Gaze forces people to turn away or get stunned, and even if they turn, they're slowed. And for that split second whilst they're turned away, they're not DPSing you. They're not DPSing your team. And it may seem strange for you to say that, like, oh, it's just a split second of damage. Can that really make a difference? It can. The time when they have to turn away, that's probably one or maybe even two basic attacks that you are not receiving from the enemy hunter. That's probably an ability that a mage has to wait another second to fire off. Or at the very least, you force their beads, you force their relics. You do a lot with just that one ultimate if you're able to fire it off onto multiple members. The issue is, most of the time you're not able to fire it off onto multiple. You're firing it off onto one. One, maybe two. Medusa can bring good control, good damage to the teamfights, can be played in multiple positions, and I think she is a very strong ADC right now. I think right now she is an S-, maybe even S tier character. That time. That means I need a drink. $30 gods to go. We're gonna get there, ladies and gentlemen. Mercury. 513, they have not fixed the issue with him and his ability And his passive not stacking up with bombers, but I don't know why you're building bombers with anyway. Because you just want to be building straight into stun, getting straight into some crit, and just killing enemy players left, right, and center. Great jungle presence right now from the Mercury. He's a good character, I feel. He's a very strong character. I think he's one of the top junglers if you're not playing Circuit, if you're not playing Radtasker. He is then probably the top. My money, that puts him in S, maybe even S minus. Put him in S minus, considering you can still get caught out by him. You still have to get that early advantage with him. His ganks are phenomenal. His ganks are one of the best ganks in the game. But if you're caught out with your Panster, if you're caught out without your relics, just one misstep, one misdash, and boom, you're gone. You have to play the fights with Mercury extremely carefully to get the best use out of him. Naja, I think, is criminally undervalued right now in meta. Can be played jungle, can be played solo, can be played support even. I believe you can buy Lona's Mask on Naja, which means Lona's Naja support is a thing. Although I don't really see it being too much of a thing, considering you are there to banish somebody from the fight, set up from your team, maybe even do some damage to them on the way up. Naja in that support position probably is quite strong. Doing your early game fight is good. Your passive right now is very strong. Like, you still get innate crit from your Flaming Spear passive. And a lot of people just aren't getting a point into that early game. You get your 1, you get your 2 or your 3 at level 2, you then get the other one at level 3, and at level 3 you then have that crit passive back with your Sash. Which means you can still crit with your Sash, you still gain extra power and movement speed from your new passive, and you then play even more aggressively. So Naja in the early game is a lot more aggressive, a lot more difficult to deal with. Naja is an extremely strong god right now. Because that early game is just absolutely unbearable. Able to rotate around the map extremely quickly with that ring toss, with that new passive, combining with the ring toss passive of movement speed. You are zooming from lane to lane. Especially at rank 9 when you have Rax ring toss. You are able to fly around the fucking map. Naja is disgustingly strong. I think if you do not see Naja being played in week 1 of full SPL, it's because he has received a nerf by then. If he hasn't received a nerf and you still don't see him play in an SPL, I don't know what the fuck's going on. I think Naja is better than Mercury, considering his early game is a bit better, has good setup for his team, and I think his damage is more reliable. Neith. Speaking of hunters and mid lanes, which we were not talking about at all, Hunter Neith, not really that great. Mid lane Neith, though, is strong. Mid lane Neith, you're basically playing as a mage. And that's what Neith wants to be. She basically is a mage ADC. Because all of her kit is designed to be around abilities. High scaling abilities, not that great on auto attacks. You are playing her as a ability ADC. You're going to want to build Trant, you're going to want to build Crusher, you're going to want to build Titan's Bane, you're going to want to be building maybe even Kid Size, just because you are a hunter and still want to do basic attack damage. But you are building those items because your abilities will smack. And your World Weaver Ultimate helps set up ganks on any side of the map. You don't even have to rotate to those ganks, and you are still setting them up. Issues are that your ultimate is very easily telegraphed. If a team's playing aggressively in one lane, they know that you're going to be there sitting in mid lane with your ult, or sitting in the jungle with your ult being charged up. They're going to back off. They're not going to let you have that opportunity. If that ultimate does come out, it's probably either going to go onto the support or to the ADC who has got CC immunity. And they'll coordinate, they'll find a way to deal with that ultimate before that jungler comes over and kills them. And your backflip is so easily telegraphed. You're using Neith for very specific purposes. You're using her to facilitate a magical jungler to do that, to help them get out of that early game rut. And apart from that, you won't really see Neith too much. I think Neith's got good potential for strategies of surrounding her, but outside of that, she's not got too much going for her in team fights that are spontaneous. You have to set up your damage. You have to set up your AoE route. You have to set up your zone with Neith, and most teams will not let that happen in that mid to late game. Neith for me is an A tier character. Nemesis. Nemesis is a counter to Zhong Hui in most people's eyes. And with Zhong Hui picked up a lot at LAN, you didn't see a lot of Nemesis. That should give you a kind of a feeling of where Nemesis is now. Kind of an ult bot, and her ult isn't really that great, right? Yes, you're reducing your protections. Yes, you're giving them to yourself. Yes, you're getting movement speed and movement speed, but it's for a lot less time than it was before. A lot less of a trade than it was before. She's just not being played. And for that, I'm sorry to say that Nemesis is A tier. I think she is stronger than A tier, but the way she is right now, I don't think she needs a buff. She doesn't need a nerf either. She just needs to be a tiny bit more played. Because her kit really demands it, because she's got good slow, she's got good early clear on jungle camp, she's got good punishment. If an enemy team's pushing up and using their abilities, using their relics to try and get a kill, Nemesis can punish that easily. Kill both of them. She's just not really going to be played because of it. Again, you're not planning to play on the reactionary. You're planning to play proactively. You're planning to play on the front foot rather than playing behind for a tiny bit to then get ahead. I'll put it up there as well, considering people are asking. He's not added. For reasons. Nike! We could have got sort of criminally underplayed. Nike! So difficult to deal with in solo lane. Has good clear. Maybe not the first couple of levels. Got good clear, good pressure, and I kind of would like to see more Nike. Because her passive is unbelievably useful. If you have a Nike on your team, you just win that late game, because you are faster, you are doing more damage to the enemy team, and as a Nike you have 1,000 to 2,000 HP shield. You are unkillable as a Nike in the late game. I don't think you can play Nike into anything though. I think gods with snap stuns like a Zhong Hui or an Achilles punish the Nike. Because the Nike then can't really clear. But gods like Osiris, like Erlang Shen, don't really punish the Nike. And I think in 5.13 you're not going to see too much of it. 5.14, that's when you're really going to get strong. That's when you're going to see her a fair bit more. But now I think Nike is a strong pick, regardless of what meta she is in. Because her passive is just beyond dumb. And she's very difficult to deal with. You don't really shut her down. Yes, you can get kills on her. Yes, you can put her behind, but she's not going to get shut down. Giant shield on a giant AoE slow that's a cleanse and CC immunity. Who would have thought that's fucking... Nox. Nox support with Lonos. I want to punch myself. I want to punch myself in the head hard. Because Lonos Nox is a thing in support. You also play that in mid, because she is there to CC. She is there to lock people down for your carries to then put damage into them. Elevate would... Not elevate. No. Mouse was smiling when that Lonos buff came on, because I believe Dardes would have instantly thought, I'm buying that on Nox. Thoughts on a team comp with Nox and Osiris upgraded. Horrific. You're just not killing them. I think it's a very straightforward strategy to do, but it means it's also a very straightforward strategy to deal with. You just kill the Nox a couple times early. You shut the Nox down early, at which point she's still able to be killed quite easily. Yes, she's going to bring lockdown. Yes, she's going to bring silence. And yes, she's going to mean, you do less damage when she ults you. But I still feel like Nox is going to be easier to deal with than most people give credit for. Bellona's mask is phenomenally strong right now, but it doesn't make you unkillable. I think Nox is strong. I think right now you're going to see a A+ at most. Because she can play support, because she can play mid lane, she can play 2 roles. I'm putting her in A+. Nuwa. Sorry if it got changed, so Nuwa's not that strong anymore. Everybody agree? You usually put that 10% true damage onto one person in the team fight. So usually the support, although it sometimes just bounce randomly to other people for some reason. Now you're putting 2% onto every single target, but that you just don't really want it onto every. You don't want it spread out. You want it onto one person. You want to burst down people. Overall, you're still getting the same effect of it if everybody is alive. So with one person dead already, you're losing damage on your ultimate. You're losing effectiveness on your ultimate compared to when it was before with the old story. You haven't really been seeing too much Nuwa because the gimmick has been figured out. Gimmick has been decided, has been strategized against. She's just altered, okay, I'm going to use a... We're just going to kill her in the early game. We're just going to Aegis. So with Nuwa, I think you will see her still. You might see her a bit, but I think with gods like Janus and Tot still available, I think with gods like Agni still on the field, who will bring the control more than the damage, while still bringing lots of damage, you're not going to see her too often. Yes, she was played in Summer Finals, but that was a conceded strategy being designed by Energy to make her work. Like, I watched Summer Finals. I watched every single game of Summer Finals, because it was my job. I think with Nuwa, you will still see her. You won't see her as much as you would do before, though. I'd still think of a player above Kulkan, though. I'd think it's A+. Odin! Odin. Decent support. Wouldn't really play him there, though. Decent solo laner. Loses pressure to a lot of things. Good jungler. Again, loses pressure to a lot of things. You're picking him for the cage. Like, there's no dancing around it. You're picking him for the cage. He is very difficult to kill as well. With 40% CDR, your Raven Shout is a lot. Like, you can absorb so much damage with your Raven Shout. You encounter a lot of gods that were above him because of that Raven Shout. Mercury's gonna take a couple of base attacks to hit you. New Wild's gonna do fuck all to you because of your Raven Shout. Ult's not going to one-shot you because of the Raven Shout. It's a very strong ability. A lot of people just using it as damage on the Bird Bomb rather than defensively as a shield. Right now he's strong. Because he's strong against healers, he's strong against stealth healers, he's strong against gods without jumps, with dashes. You force people to buy Shell, you force people to buy Phantom, you force people to buy Sprint. Because they want to get away from you. Because they want to try and escape that cage, escape the zone control. Or you play it in a different way. And this is what a lot of Odins won't do. This is what your typical ranked Odin won't do, because they'll just want people inside the cage, because that's the common sense play. You could use your cage as giant ring of walls. You could separate people because of it. You can split teamfights because of it. If you place your ring in a certain way near the Gold Fury pit, you can cut off 2 entrances. And force them to take a huge detour round to rejoin the fight, or pop their Phantom to go through the cage. Which is not what you want. You want Phantom to escape the cage, not go through it. Or you force them to jump into the fight, which means their jump is down, which means they don't really have escapability. You could force a lot just by placing your ring correctly. When will this be put on YouTube? We put up, I believe after this, depending on how long it goes, because I gotta go watch a movie in 1.5 hours. So Odin he's strong, doesn't really have a place to be played, but against healing and with the way healing is right now, you need an Odin. Osiris. Right now, no one's playing Osiris. No one's picking him, no one's playing him. There isn't really a reason to, considering he doesn't really get pressure in lane anymore. He just concedes it most of the time. He can bully out other gods like Cuchulainn. He can bully out other gods quite easily. Issue is, he doesn't bully them out too well. Like, he doesn't instantly bully them out. It takes time. You have to whittle them down as an Osiris. Constant sickle strikes, constant spirit flails, and eventually they'll be at a point where they can't fight into anymore. They have to go back to base and heal up. Also, you kept your distance, you got damage mitigation on your passive, you reduce their damage because of your Judgment Tether, and you are very difficult. He's not got much going from outside of that, though. You jump into a fight with Lord of the Afterlife, you pop your Judgment Tether, they pop Sprint, and they're gone. Your Judgment Tether is no longer useful, and you are then killed, because you've then used up all 6 of your basic attacks, which means you are now back to your weakest form. Where you don't have an ult, you have 0% damage mitigation, your Judgment Tether is still just about to come up on cooldown. You're then just dead in the water. Because you don't provide hard CC outside of your root and outside of your stun, which take a while to go off. Also, other gods like Cuchulainn, you provide a knock-up, you provide a root, you provide a push. Gods like Hercules, you provide a knockback, you provide a push and stun, you provide a boulder, which will then just decimate a team fight. You spread team fights with other warriors better than you will do in Osiris. And until the buffs come in, until the Glad Shield buffs come in, you're not going to see an Osiris unless it's designed to beat the enemy solo laner and then get ahead to then bully out the rest of the game. Because you have to play as a bully as an Osiris, and you sometimes aren't able, most of the time you aren't able to do that because you can't get that advantage in lane. 1 second, guys. That's some nice food I got there. Do you think we'll get a long solo after the patch? Yes, I think we will. Really good. Okay. On to Poseidon. If anybody's watched Rival, you know that we like Poseidon. Athena Poseidon, boom, instant combo, instant kill onto anybody because they're taunted into a Kraken. Without so much setup, he really brings a lot less control because you're not guaranteed to hit that centerpiece of the Kraken. You're using it more as an objective secure more often than not. You're there to bring your Whirlpool control with Gem Isolation, but it takes a while to get that online. You're not really building that early, meaning you're going to be building like 5th, 4th, or 5th, or 6th even. And sometimes there isn't even a guarantee that you do build it. I think you do have to build it on him, but there's sometimes a guarantee that you won't. Poseidon, he's strong in certain situations, but very weak in others. He can rotate to fights extremely well because of his passive movement speed and because of his trial movement speed. His early game wave clear is strong, but if you do not hit your Kraken in those mid and late game team fights, you aren't doing anything most of the time. You are there as a one-trick pony, you're there for your Kraken, and if you do not get value out of that Kraken, you are not winning those teams. Poseidon, in my money, is A+. Good with a lot of the top tier supports right now, who will provide him with that setup necessary to hit that Kraken. Or Quacken if you're playing the correct skin, which I don't have. So. 6, 12, 8. 26 gods to go. I miscounted earlier. Ra, next up on the list. And I know I said that Lona's heals. I know they said Lona's healers are very strong. But with Ra, I don't want Lona's. Because he's not only there for the heals, he's there for the big bang damage. You just don't see him at all, though. Like, why pick Ra when you can pick Toth, when you can pick Janus, who are just going to provide the same amount of damage, whilst having either better utility than the heal, in terms of Janus, or from a safer distance with the Toth. Anti-healing very prevalent right now, Socket very prevalent right now, and they're just going to go onto the Ra and kill him. His ult up so often, though. His ult up is extremely often. And I think Ra is still an extremely strong god. He's undervalued right now, considering how easy it is to kill him in the early game. If you're able to get a kill onto him level 1, 2, or 3, he is struggling throughout a lot of the game. Yes, he can rotate to farm very quickly, but he's still punishable. Big thing. For me, it's a difficult one to place Ra. I think I'd like to place him in S- for now. Simply because of the lack of play we've seen. I think his kit is S, even S plus worthy. He's just not getting played at all. Raijin got played a fair bit at LAN. And rightly so. Good control, good burst on him. And the control that he brings is from a great distance. And you see him be able to slow people down with Gem of Isolation with his Raiju. He doesn't even need Gem of Isolation. He just slows people with it naturally. Just Gem of Isolation is a lot meaner on him. So where would I place Raijin? I would place him in S-. Does extremely well with some of the supports that are on top of the game, especially Terra. Extremely well with Terra because you are instantly guaranteeing the pop of that extra burst from Terra ult because you have dot damage. With that, you're able to get kills and burst down people earlier. You're able to control teamfights extremely well because of your CC on the Taiko drums and your CC on it for one of the longest times in the game. He also has good lane clear in the early game, good poke ability in the early game because of his Percussive Storm and that Raichu ability. Strong God, seeing a lot more play, which is deserved. Ram, yes, don't really need to explain that. Good lane clear, good team fight, can banish himself from a team fight and bait for rotations. Even if he's in lane, it just goes up to the air, baits for rotations, you can't really kill him because of it. Good communication means that he is very difficult to deal with, and late game he just kills you because he's Ram. Nothing else more to say. Rathasker. I think he is one of the top junglers right now. Although I am only going to place him in S, because I think Socket's just better. We're going to quickly do Socket right now as well. They're sort of doing the same thing. They're destroying you in the early game whilst providing a lot of CC and control. But Socket just does it and bursts you down faster than the Rathasker will. Rathasker has to use his most of the time he's using his dash during the kill. You blink, you stun, and then if they jump away, you dash after them. Also, Socket, you blink, you taunt, you Deathbane, you ult, and then he can leap away still. Socket just brings safer utility and damage than the Rathasker, which is why I'm placing Socket above the Rathasker. Moving on to Raven, who did get rekitted as an assassin. I haven't seen too much Raven right now. It's difficult to really know where I want to place him. In my last tier list, I had him in A+. I don't know if him being an assassin now classifies him as new, considering how much change was onto his base stats, onto his damage output, but I think he outputs a fuck ton of damage now. I think he has got tremendous burst on him. He's got good immunity as well on that overray kick, as well as damage mitigation on his ultimate. I think you will see a fair bit of Raven. I think he is S-. Scylla, A tier mage. Not got that great of an early game. really relies on hitting the root. It's not the armor monster that you want to hit, because if you hit the root, you're guaranteed that damage. Your supports will also help you guarantee that damage as well. And you're also not guaranteed the reset. It just doesn't do too much damage. Doesn't do enough damage to get that reset. But so, Scylla, you want to hit that root. You want to hit a big AoE root into their AoE crush. You're just not going to do that every single time. Skadi. Ability-based hunter who's not being played when there's ability-based builds being played in the game. I think with the next patch, you're going to be seeing a bit more Skadi, but right now, I see very little reason to pick her. I see decent lane pressure, which can be fought off very easily. I see burst ability, which can be avoided. And I see a very easy to avoid CC. She's good in team fights, I feel. But she also gets jumped on very easily in team fights because she has to use one of her best team fighting abilities aggressively, but then she also wants to save it defensively to get away. Sobek. Seen a fall from grace. I predicted when the changes to cooldown boots went up that here was going to be an S+. And it kind of was for a week. Now we're coming into this land, you don't see him at all. Like, at all. He's not really being valued. He doesn't give enough pressure, which is what won EU the LAN. Well, won Europe the LAN, not EU, isn't he? But the pressure is what got Europe the wins in the solo lane. What got them the wins during the LAN, because they got that pressure. Even SSG, when they have pressure in the solo lane, they look like they would win the games. The games against Energy, which they won, first game, they had pressure in the solo lane, they then rotated that pressure around and played with it like a European team would. And so he doesn't provide that pressure, he negates it. He's a reactive pick, he's something that you pick when you don't really know what you want to play. And he doesn't really do too well in support right now either, because Khepri just... I think Khepri just does better than him. Reduces the damage he's outputting, roots him in place if he tries to go further ahead, and then can be punished for doing that dash if he misses it. I think Sobek's flexibility saves him from dropping down too far, but I think right now, you're not seeing him. You're not really going to be seeing him that much. I think right now he is an S- character. Simply because of his flex pick ability. If he was only really played in one role, you would see him in A+, maybe. Sol. Sol. What's the backup plan for a couple of teams when you had two ADCs? When you had like the magical ADC and the regular ADC, and the magical ADC of Kronos was banned. That fact that you're a backup plan, they didn't really perform too well as a backup plan either, isn't really that great. You bring good damage, good CC, your wave clear is great, considering your in-hands are better than most ADCs. But now you just pick Freya over it. Now you pick Kronos over it. You can pick other hunters over in the mid lane. They don't pick her in ADC either, considering you want your hunter there. So right now, I think she's a bit weak. She's not being played. Now just an A-tier character. Sun Wukong. I'm not going to get a lot of questions of Death's build with it. I'm not going to answer any of them. You go ask him about it. But his build makes him work. That's all I'm really going to say about his build. The fact that it makes him work. And with Wukong, he's there for a bit of damage, there for a bit of control. He's there to try and harass the early game, harass the mid game, and harass the late game. Go on the enemy ADC, enemy mid laner, stun them, harass them for a bit, maybe hit them with a magic cudgel and then fuck off up into your cloud. Because you've taken a lot of damage already. It doesn't do the exact same job as the other warriors. It doesn't displace anybody. It doesn't lock people down for a long bit of time for your hunter to, or your mage to then set up their abilities, like you would do with a Cucullin or a Hercules. And for my money, Wukong is still strong. I think he is an A+ tier character. I wouldn't want to put him above that, though, because he isn't going to be... He just isn't going to go straight away. Why that message came through, I turned sounds off, and it fucking... Susano is going to be next up on the list. And Susano was brought up a tiny bit at LAN due to his control, due to his aggressive playstyle, and due to his very easy ability to apply item effects, like brawlers. It's also incredibly slippery, incredibly difficult to deal with, especially for a god like Odin. Very good counter to the Odin is Susano, because he can just jet stream out of the cage. Susano, I think he's strong, I think he's good, but I wouldn't really pick him above a Mercury. I'm going to put him in A+ for now. Sylvanas, in a meta where you want dual lane pressure, and Sylvanas isn't really picked up that much, Sylvanas has something wrong with it. He just gets picked off far too easily. Yes, he brings good lane pressure, yes, he brings good sustain with wisps, but at this point, why not just pick an Aphrodite support? And just heal for more on a single target, provide CC and like damage, like provide complete immunity to them, provide a good slow with the back off. You don't really have initiation then. Well, if you're drafting correctly, you would then draft initiation elsewhere. You would then draft in a Cucullin, let's say. You would then draft in a Hun Batz, let's say. An Odin, even example. You would draft initiation elsewhere. Sylvanas just gets picked off far too easily for what he brings right now. Me, I would put him in A+. That's where we saw him in line in terms of like this support seeding. Because in that final game, 7 supports were banned, and only then was Sylvanas picked. You can make a case for him even being A at this point, but I think you pick him over Bacchus. Terra. I think Terra is good. In certain hands, in certain situations. I think Terra does well when you're playing with dot-based gods that can easily pop that ability. Playing it with like Hou Yi, playing it with the Raichin, for example. She's also a fantastic counter to Artemis in lane. Because Artemis just gets destroyed by the root, destroyed by the block, destroyed by the 2 walls crashing together, and then just takes increased damage from the Terra's ult. I can't even remember what the ultimate name is now. I'm going to keep saying Terra's Blessing until... So for me, Terra does well in certain situations against certain gods. I'm going to say she's A+ right now. Better than Fury. I think, actually, with Terra going into A+, I'm going to drop Sylvanas down to A, because there's a fair few supports already in A+. Sylvanas being a fall from grace I'd like to see. Thanatos. Made to work against the Zhonghui because he got an early kill. I kind of classify that as a cheese. Kind of do. Considering it worked once, and then after that, it was easy for Energy to adjust and then play the game that play the game the way they should have played it in game 1, and the Thanatos didn't really do too much. It doesn't really do well in the jungle considering he gets punished a bit early, you miss your scythe, you are screwed. And other junglers just have more reliable damage, more reliable control over the Thanatos. I think he can do well in the solo lane. I think he can do wonders, actually. Especially if you build him in that solo lane as a tank. Because Lono's Mask will not reduce the execute threshold. Because it's 9,999 true damage. It's going to do that no matter what. The Morrigan. Well, even 5.14, the Morrigan gets a fair old amount of bug fixes. It's 5.13. Check. No, it's 5.14 where you're going to see a fair old amount of bug fixes for the Morrigan. So for now, too risky to play, a bit too bugged to play, and has too much countability. You can just build stacking items and the Morrigan will not transfer those stacks over to her. Meaning, if you're against the Morrigan, build Warlocks, build Book of Thoth, and she just doesn't do much when she transports into you. So the Morrigan right now I'd say is an A tier character. Maybe even A minus due to her instability during the game. But I still think she has a place. I still think she can do well in terms of wave clear. Still do well in terms of the team fight because she's very versatile. But she just doesn't really bring too much in the early game. She has to get in close range, unlike other mages. But unlike Hebo, her damage isn't instant, it isn't really easy to confirm. And doesn't have much of a way of escaping with that water carpet. Do you think she should copy the stacks of her target? She is going to do next patch, and I kind of don't think she should. Because it provided intelligent counterplay. It provided a counter build. Now she doesn't really have it. Thor. He has decent control. He has a good solo lane clip. You're just not seeing him. Because he has to jump into the middle of the fight. He has to build as a warrior. He has to build bruiser. He has to build pretty much full defense to be able to land into the middle of the fight and kill the target which he wants to. By which point they probably pop Beeps and Aegis anyway. So you've used your ult, you use your wall, and you use your hammer to get out, and you're not doing anything for the next 8 seconds by which time the fight's over. His global pressure is just outshone by Radtasker. His burst ability is outshone by nearly every single other jungler in the game. And you're not playing him in solo lane because you just get outcleared and outtraded by most of the warriors in the game. I think for Thor, it's a very tough time to be a Thor player. I don't see him being played at all. I don't see much use in the Thor in these days, considering I just take a Radtasker and do much more. Knockup's more powerful than stun. His ultimate's just better in a team fight situation. His dash, his damage, his CC, his control is just much better. Radtasker is a much better Thor. So why are you picking Thor at all? You just don't. I think he's A- right now. I think Thor is one of the worst junglers in the game. Which is a far cry from where he was last year. Tier. When 5.12 or is it 5.11 came around, I thought Tier was going to be absolutely broken with the new disarm on his dash. I thought he was going to be a nightmare to deal with because he would just dash in aggressively in his power stance, knock you up again with his power cleave, change his defensive stance, power cleave you again, dash away. It's just his disarm is very difficult to get onto them, and by the time you've finished your dash, the disarm on them is already gone. And if you've dashed into them aggressively, you are then CC'd and then killed. Roots were very prominent at this LAN. Slows were very prominent on this LAN. And your passive is not going to absorb them. Your passive is not going to reduce them to 1 second. You can't reduce a knockup, you can't reduce a slow, you can't reduce the Root's duration as well. And Tier would just die to that. He would be forced to use his ult away. He's forced to get Blink. Most players were gonna get teleport as well, so you're shoehorned to teleport and Blink, meaning you don't have Dawns to deal with the double 80s. He's a great lane bully, but he doesn't do much outside of that. Now he's going to be placed in A. Ullr. Great burst on his combo. You have to hit your combo, though. And most of the games we saw at LAN, he wasn't really hitting the combo. I'd say Ullr is S- right now. Probably the best ability-based hunter in the game. But the thing is, if you're an ability-based hunter in a meta where there are double hunters, and you are being played mid, something's wrong. Something's up. So, for me, Ullr is S- right now. I mean, he probably should even be A+, considering I would have put that as a negative from where he is right now. But his burst ability and his presence in teamfights for a very single target-oriented character is phenomenal. The mana. Big yikes for the Vam. With Odin being as prevalent as he is, the mana's not going to see too much play. I still think he's better than Chuck. I still think he provides more control and more teamfight presence than a Chuck. He could also flex to the jungle if he wanted to, but again, much like the jungle and much like solo lane, mana sustained is an issue for him, and with blue buff being as weak as it is, and with the jungle mana regen being as weak as it is, mana isn't going to get so many abilities off in a jungle rotation. And if he is playing in the jungle, he's not going to clear as fast as other junglers. If he's playing solo lane, he's really relying on trying to bully out enemy solo lanes, which you're not really going to do these days. Because blue buff is a bit weaker. If your mana costs are that exuberant, you want to be using them to clear the wave. Vulcan. Vulcan is a mage that I would classify as strong when played, strong in theory, but just doesn't get played because he's not super strong compared to other mages in the game. Because his turret is just fucking awful. His turret's good in terms of a tiny bit of zone control, a tiny bit of a nuisance, but it's just there. You put it down, it's like, oh great, there's a turret there. I'm just gonna, leap around it. I'm gonna go this way now. But nicely done, wasting an ability. Your backfire is one of your main sources of damage, and I think in this one you can't do it through. Actually, can't do it through. Your magma bomb is, you get to see the targeter where it is right now, meaning you can dodge it. And the ultimate, you need setup with it. You're required to set up for the Vulcan, you're required to peel for the Vulcan, you're required to facilitate the Vulcan to do what he wants. And most of the time you're not doing that. Most of the time you'd rather pick somebody who can facilitate themselves, somebody who can do the damage themselves. I think what saves Vulcan going down to A- is the fact that he can still output a serious amount of damage quite safely with his magma bomb and backfire combination. Backfire being on a 5-second cooldown on base is quite absurd. It's on 5 or 6 seconds. I can't remember. Shibbolonke up next. And Shibbolonke with his Darkest of Nights, it's one of the most insane abilities in the game to deal with because map-wide AoE blind, it's the best team-fighting ultimates in the game. You just don't pick it because he doesn't bring too much to the teamfights outside of that. Brings good damage onto the objectives, brings good damage into the game, but you're influencing the fight from a distance, and unlike Neath, it's not providing damage. It's providing a loss of cohesion for the enemy team, which most high-level teams are going to be able to play around. Shibbolonke these days is being picked as a counter to the Khepri, because you blind the enemy team, and then the Khepri can't see where his revive target is. You're then able to kill him, or kill the revive target, and then Khepri's just gone, what do I do now? Shibbolonke right now, I believe, is an A+ character. Could move up in the near future, but again, much rather have Jing Wei and Medusa or above him. Xing Chen. I wouldn't even need to say more. He's not good in solo lane, considering he doesn't even freeze the wave as much as a Sobek would. He doesn't play support well, considering his lane pressure is ass. His ult is one of the most telegraphed ults in the game. Very easy to avoid, very easy to juke. Xing Chen's just not that great of a god. Ymir, on the other hand, I think Ymir is quite strong. I think Ymir is A+. I think his wall... I think his walls are very strong if played correctly. I think his laning phase is strong. I think his jungle is strong, especially with new Rangdas. I think he's one of the only gods in the game that will make good use out of Rangdas. Because you can build Rangdas on him, build 4 other defensive items alongside boots, and still output a shit ton of damage. I think Ymir is going to be a strong jungler to deal with, a strong support to deal with, because of the control that it brings alongside his walls, alongside his freeze, and alongside his burst ability and objectives. The big issue is that he's immobile as fuck and very easy to deal with, provided you're able to get onto him. Once you put it behind in the early game, keep the pressure on him, and he will falter. Zeus. Really only played when you have gods that can peel from successfully, like a Capri or a Geb. Otherwise, you're not seeing because he's just so difficult to keep alive, so difficult to confirm your damage with him. Because he's got no CC immunity, his only CC is a slow. He just gets jumped on in the early game so easily and just killed consistently. That's why we've seen builds where he's rushed boots, because you want to get that survivability online early. If you're unable to get the survivability online early, well then, I don't know what to say. You want to be building pure bursts on him, but you also want to be building health and defense on him. Because the way of his kit, because of the way his kit's designed and scaled, he has a tremendous amount of damage if you build it. But you also want to build survivability to get that damage off. Zeus does not need a stun, you can fuck off. So for now, I think Zeus is A tier. You could see a lot more of him than you would the other characters in A tier, simply because when you pair him up with the Capri, when you pair him up with the Geb, or even the Odin, he then shoots up to A+, even S-. And finally, almost 2 3/4 hours later, we're on to Zhong Hui. We're on to the final god of the tier list. Zhong Hui, with Lono's mask, saying it for the final time, is dumb. Zhong Hui's dumb right now in general. Got nerfed in 5.12 going into the LAN, and he was still picked up a hell of a lot. In 5.13, he is as he was in 5.12, but even stronger. I need to check that because I don't think he got. No, he did. He got nerfed in 5.13, not 5.12. But he is still strong. He's still fantastically strong. He provides great lane pressure, very difficult to kill in the early game, but like level 5, he has 80 of each protections, which, unless you have a Circuit or a Ratatasker, you are not getting through. Even if you do get through them, bang, out comes the ultimate. Only Circuit will be able to get through it. That's why Circuit's such a phenomenally strong jungler right now, by the way, is because she's the only one that can really deal with the Zhong Hui. Zhong Hui, for my money, is one of the best solo laners right now, especially with Lonos. You're picking him a fair old amount of games. So, that is going to be it for the tier list update. That was an absolutely insane one, because we've been going for over 2.5 hours now. Thank you guys so much for watching it, and I know it looks a bit lopsided around A+ right now, but that's because I don't really have too much data to go on. I'm going off hunches right now. With my hunches, everything is strong. So, thank you guys so much for watching this. We'll be back on, not this Thursday, but next Thursday with the 5.14 update. Hope to see you all there. Peace. I've read a bit